Hello, welcome to the Honest Wargamer. I'm your host, Rob, for this Age of Sigmar Monday show, and I'm joined by Mr. James Powell. Whoop, 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 whoop. James, welcome
Ahoy,
back
ahoy.
welcome back to the show. How you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. What up, chat? Hello, chat. We're live on Twitch. In fact, I've realised I haven't told everyone that we're live, James. So let's get on that, shall we?
We can be like secret online
Yeah,
for
secret online.
3 minutes.
So actually, this is the first Monday that we have done, ladies and gentlemen in the chat, in a while. I've been in Canada. Nate,
Too popular.
Thanks for Wargamer for subscribing. Not too popular. That's not the case. So I was in Canada, and then James has been off. In doing all sorts of adventures. He's been at 18 weddings. I think that's the correct amount of weddings.
432 weddings.
Yes, and and Mr. Nathan Prescott has been on a world tour. He's currently in Croatia. Last week he was at a glitter festival. No, that's not true. Last week it was at an EDM festival in a forest, and then the weekend before that he was at a glitter festival. And so it's impossible to pin him down. But I promise you, he returns next week, angry and obsessed with what's happening with Gits. I think, although I'm not sure if he's actually angry. But today's show.
Is Nathan ever angry?
Has he ever been? No, never. There was that one time he had to change the base size. That was it.
Oh yeah, that was a good night though.
Yeah, it was a great night, I thought. That was a great night. But hello. Oh, it's back to school day. Oh, that's correct, Max. Hello, Max, you babe. Max's latest model is phenomenal. Anyway, let me just catch it. We'll talk to the chat in a second because it's James. This is a bit of a James, Rob, and the chat show. So if you listen to this as a podcast, do be aware of that. And if you're watching back on YouTube, do be aware of that as well. Thanks very much for liking, subscribing, and all that other jazz. Because today's show, we're going to be looking at the upcoming releases for Age of Sigmar. And we're going to be talking about what we would maybe like to see. Because there's actually a roadmap, which is pretty crazy. And it'll be fun to talk about what we might want to see over the next couple of months. Especially as James has been kind of like spending the summer partying in real life. And as we know, Warhammer's more of a winter affair.
Always a winter affair. When it's cold outside, go in with the sweaty nerds.
Yeah, when it's cold outside, it's time to lose your pride on the tabletop of miniature wargaming. I think that's the rhyme. I think the children's.
That one also works, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. Questions as to whether or not Nathan is leading a sex cult is ones we, as the Honest Wargamer, are unwilling to comment on. But all I'll say is this.
God damn these electric sex bands.
Right, you can't hear that, but James, sorry, but I'll try and get that sorted.
I can guess.
Battle Squid, great little thing. All right, so that's what we're going to do today. James, catch me up with how you're doing, because there's a bit of news just come out from the internet, and I want to go catch up on it. So, James, how have you been? What have you been up to? Catch us up. You've got friends in the chat. People are like, "What you doing? How you doing?" All those things.
Pretty good, pretty well. Been kind of like plodding along. Been to several weddings. Oh no, one wedding. Lots of places. That's how thrown my head is. So I've done lots of like real life stuff, I guess.
Oh yeah.
Which is weird. Like it's weird to have done so much real life stuff, I think. So done a wedding, been traveling, went down south for a wedding, stayed for a bit, saw a castle. That was nice. What else have we done? Went to the Lake District for like a long weekend. Pootled about.
The Lake
Played
District.
a lot of computer games. Yeah, to the Lake District.
Bonjour.
Oh yeah, getting little fillers. Went and watched Book of Mormon in Nottingham.
I'm so jealous because you didn't tell me you were here, and I was like, "I'm here." Then you thought I was in Canada.
Well, in my head you were in Canada, so I was like, "Oh, he's in Canada. He doesn't care."
I super
I'm
care.
In Nottingham. I was poorly though. I've still got a cough, so I was a bit poorly, so I had Book of Mormon tickets 3.5 years ago, I think.
Is it the first time you've seen it?
Yeah. So I had them 3.5 years ago, and then our friend COVID appeared.
Yes.
So I had that drama, and it was coming to Birmingham, and it got flat cancelled, not really like done, nothing. They just gave me my money back and left. So I was really sad about that. So then I got a thing to say, oh, this is happening again. but Nottingham. So I booked a ticket, and then I was poorly and I kept coughing, and I was like, have I got COVID? Because if I've got COVID, I'm going to miss this again. So I was a bit upset about that. I think I did 4. It was the first time I've done multiple tests, so I think I did 4. So I did 4 lateral flow tests, all negative. Fine, went. It's incredible. So if you haven't seen it and you like South Park, Trey Parker, Matt Stone sort of humor, you should go.
Yeah, so most people don't know that Book of Mormon, which is a musical, an out-and-out musical that's won several, what they call Tony Awards, which is kind of the Oscars of the board and musical like frame. It's the people that wrote South Park and Team America, and they won loads of awards for it. It's apparently incredible. I say apparently. I already know. I've seen it twice. It's amazing.
Yeah, it was amazing. But also hilarious, like how many people didn't know. So as we're like walking through the auditorium, the like intermission, people were just like, "Oh, it's a bit crass." I was like, "So what do you expect?" And then someone was like, "I heard it's by those people that made South Park," with like disgust. I was like, Isn't that its main selling point?
That's literally its main selling point. Like, its main selling point.
So that was an odd experience. But it was really good. Really enjoyed it.
Oh, great. Okay, well, I'm glad you did. I played Warhammer this weekend, although if you listen to the Stats Centre earlier today, you already know that. Or Spare Playering. I've Spare Played quite a few events now, James, and I've been loving it. Like, I just nip in, I write a terrible list, and then I play some Warhammies and have some fun, which is really good. The other week, James, I don't know if you saw the picture. Obviously, I'm running the event, so I guess it's my event. But I played for the entire weekend, and then I gave myself an award.
I did see. I saw the photo. And it's also, they're not your events, aren't they? Don't the events belong to the Twitch chat?
They always belong to everything belongs to the Twitch chat. That's
exactly
true.
Right.
What up, Twitch chat? How you doing? All right. So James, let's dive straight in. Yeah, let's look at the hot news, shall we? Because there's some good news. There's a bunch of news, but should we start out with a bit of like spice melange? It's rare that we get an opportunity to talk about some spice melange on a.
Yeah, let's talk about some spice melange.
Okay, I don't think that's actually French, but let me just go see. James,
you told me you spoke perfect French.
That's true. James, ask me if I'd work at Games Workshop ever again.
Do I want to?
Yeah, just ask me.
Will I be allowed in the building? Would you ever work at Games Workshop again?
I made a vow never to return to that cag house ever again.
It's okay. There's a little thing that says a thing. It's funny. All right. Okay. Right. So that's a bit of a segue to this. Warhammer TV Peach, one of my old co-workers, I don't know if anyone has seen this, has just announced that he's going to be leaving Games Workshop. Today sees my last day working at Games Workshop after 20 plus incredible years. I've decided to take the big plunge into the wider world. Over the years, I've had the opportunity to be part of so many incredible projects, work on so many talented people. Games Workshop and the community have always been my second family, but now it's time for me to move on, do some stuff for me. As my wife always says, plant for growth, it needs to be repotted. This is not the end, a new beginning. Stay tuned. Love, Peachy. Oh my goodness, James.
And Peach is the Warhammer TV guy, because I am bad. I am bad.
Yeah.
Warhammer
so it was Duncan.
Yep.
Then it was Duncan and me.
Yep.
Then it was Duncan and Peachy.
Yep.
Then it was just Peachy. Then
Yep.
it was Peachy and Louise.
Yep.
Like I'm obviously talking about people that people liked. Apologies. And then that's where we're at now.
Okay.
Yeah. So
do we know where he's going?
We don't know where he's going. Although obviously rumor abound. Will he just do stage and musical performances of TV's Sharp starring Sean Bean? Maybe.
That would be exciting.
That's correct. Maybe he will get into the adult miniature market. Who knows?
That's Nathan's market, and if he goes there, we will have to kill him.
Okay, yeah. If you tread on that, we fight you. We
Just
fight you,
saying.
Peachy. Yeah, that's it. Peachy Paints is being suggested in the chat, which I think is funny. When are they going to realise that people of the talent are driving them out? Who knows? But that's some pretty significant news. I think he's worked, like he says in his tweet, he's worked there over 20 years. So pretty incredible stuff. So I just thought I'd bring that out. So good luck to Mr. Peach wherever he decides to land in his travels. If you'd like to come on the show, Peach, you're more than welcome to have a chat.
If he's going to work for Duncan Rhodes,
well, he wouldn't come
that'd
on
be
the show.
drama. But
Why
he
would that be drama?
Paint.
You what?
Because he'd be bottling paint.
Is that where he's going to work in the
I'm
Duncan
still
Rhodes?
waiting for my paint.
He's going
still
to work
bottling it.
That's
in my head. There's just Duncan on a machine. I got an email that was like, "We're a bit delayed. We're bottling it ourselves," and all I could think was Duncan being like, "Oh, if it was only one thick coat, this wouldn't take as long."
just pouring the paint with what? Like what is this that we're doing physically? You can't see this in the podcast. This is a paint puller, like a pint.
You like put the fruit in and then pull the handle, and then it's paint.
Okay, so yeah, so maybe he clearly is going to be like I guess kind of like a Charlie and the Chocolate Factory style Oompa Loompa in the Duncan Rhodes paint pulling factory, I guess. So it's going to be 2. Looking forward to that. That's going to be pretty fun.
I like the fact you're still on my delayed stream you were still pulling paint.
Still pulling paint. All right.
For anyone watching on podcast, we're just basically pulling a handle like we were in a pub. It makes paint, not beer.
Right. Okay. Next bit of news coming out of the G-dubs relating to Age of Sigmar. Before we kind of get to the main point of the show,
before we go any further,
please. Ask me. Go on.
Serious question.
Yeah, I'm ready.
How much did it cost the Honest Wargamer to have Peachy announce leaving GW at the same time we went live?
That was in no way timed. No way.
Let me just PayPal him.
We have to check with his boss first. See how much money he can make. Right, yeah. Oh, that means more videos from that guy with that weird accent that nobody else has, says Battle Squid. Don't know what that means, but okay. Okay. Right, okay. So the next bit of news is Black Lightning strikes as Eternus, Blade of the First Prince, storms into battle. So we know that there's another bit of gossip, actually. So if you guys weren't keeping track, guys, girls, MBs, everyone in the world, if you weren't keeping track, then the Slaves to Darkness book was leaked a few months ago. So this is the upcoming Slaves to Darkness book coming out probably towards Christmas, something like that. However, it was leaked, and we saw a bunch of pictures from the book inside. The story is, though, James, that the guy is being sued for his thingy. But again, unfounded rumor.
What, the guy that leaked it?
The guy that leaked it, yeah.
Do we know who leaked it?
I think he worked inside the printers. Like, that's what we're thinking. That's the current, like, Honest Wargamer detective agency.
Okay. And how do they prove who leaked it?
How do they prove who leaked it? Well, I think he's in the picture.
Oh. Probably not a great idea. If you're going to leak something, probably not a good idea to be like...
Thumbs!
With the War Scrolls. And then...
Also, I think leaking stuff is a bit dumb, right? Because, like, at the moment, it seems like a super big deal. Like, when, like, we saw a leak of... I don't know how we saw a leak of it, but we saw a leak of the new Demon Primarch for 40k, right? So we saw that leak already, right? And then they had to showcase it. And that's kind of like one of those benchmark big deals where you're like, oh, shit, that's a big deal. But it's not worth being sued over. Like, just chill out a little bit. Do you know what I mean?
Well,
like,
the person that's leaking it's not getting anything, right?
No. Well, Miniac does have a massive YouTube channel. So, like, that's a big bonus for him.
And he leaked the Demon Prince.
All of the leaks, actually, have been Miniac for decades.
Okay.
Even before he was born.
Nice.
It was Miniac.
That's a good thing. Like in the 80s when GW started?
Yeah, I think
he was still leaking them. He was like Polaroiding, posting them to people's houses. Sorted. Printing them at Kodak shop, 6x4, singing the negatives out, print your own.
It's just him all the time. I need to
Nice.
clip a Miniac soundbite for the show because it's really funny. Miniac is the reason we don't have digital books as well, because of his leaks. Although we technically do have digital books, but that's a side note anyway.
I think the digital books are better now than they were before.
Yeah, the digital books.
I'd just like to put that out there.
I'd like to
I've
say
not
that the
seen one.
No.
However,
Me either. But if I was, there's a couple of bonuses to the current digital books I really like. Number one, price point is excellent.
yeah, real good.
Huge fan. Huge fan of the current price point. Right, anyway, so Black Lightning strikes as Eternus. Blade of the First Prince storms into battle. Okay, so we saw all this leaked previously. So
Okay, so I haven't seen this FMV thing.
You haven't seen what? The leak?
I've seen this guy. I haven't seen the video.
Oh, what the? Oh, we're not going to watch the video.
But can we just that splash screen looks like it was in Shadow of the Horn Rat, the 90s Warhammer game. Do you remember that game?
It looks like Wrath of the Lich King. I feel like that they've tried to tie it right in with Wrath of the Lich King at the same time.
How do you think? Did you or the chat ever play Shadow of the Horn Rat? It was like a weird top-down, hyper pixelated, best Warhammer game ever made. Putting that out there, I'll die on that hill.
Wait, no, is this the one that's kind of like an RTS where you had
Yeah.
like a bright wizard and you were like, you had some cavalry?
Alor.
Yeah,
Oh no, he wasn't. He was the Amber Wizard. My name is Alor.
Wait,
I fight for Earth, not you. That guy. I play that game a lot.
Wait, no, I'm talking about Dark Omen. I'm talking about Dark Omen.
Yeah, so Dark Omen was the sequel of Shadow of the Horn Rat.
I would love to complete that game because that was the hardest game I ever played.
You can,
Right?
but the whole chat.
Yeah.
You can buy both of them, Shadow of the Horn Rat and I think Dark Omen, on GOG, that whatever it stands for, GOG.com, and they're like £5. And about
Shut up.
3 years ago, I rebought Shadow of the Horn Rat because when I was a kid, it used to destroy me, and I never really ever won. And I was like, right, I'm an adult now, got this. About 6 weeks later, I won it.
Yeah, like that was exactly what I remember. Like I remember playing it again as an adult, and I was like, right, fucking focus this time, Rob. You're no longer a kid. Yeah,
Yeah.
You've got this. And then I put it down, and I was like, this is impossible. I might have to watch your tutorial anyway. By the way, GOG is not the word cock, Wolf Brother, and everyone else in the chat. It's Good Old Games. Thank you very much.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
If anyone doesn't use it, it's actually quite cute. And they do that weird thing where it's all freeware. So I think once you've bought it, people can just use it, and it's all on trust.
Oh, nice. That's cute. All right, love that. Love that. Okay, thank you to Shintaro for resubscribing. Okay, right, we'll get on with this. Okay, so there's a video. We won't watch it, although I'm sure they tried really hard. Right, descending from the sky of Bolt in Black Line in Eternus, the Blade of the Dark Prince. There's some actually real interesting lore here, James. Yeah, and actually this is kind of really, it's kind of exciting. Okay, so this guy is to Be'lakor what Archeon is to the Chaos Gods.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So he's like the first lieutenant of Be'lakor, right? That's
The
his
whipping boy.
Yeah, but a little bit more
Head
than that. Head
whipping
whipping boy. But Be'lakor is currently trying, in the narrative, is trying to unseat Archeon as like the king of chaos, right? That's what he's trying to do, right? And so this is kind of interesting because Eternus, this guy, right? I'm going to read the story because it's quite interesting.
His
And
name's Eternus.
His name is Eternus, yes.
And so before we go further,
Okay.
this is how I am tonight,
Yeah.
just so you're aware. So before we go further, so he's a Chaos Mortal?
He is a
Or are we
chaos
gonna-
mortal. Yeah.
Okay. So in theory, he's a bloke. He's just a lad in
Yeah.
good armor.
Yeah. Could have
So
been
when
called
he's-
Arthas at one point.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So when he's born, do you think he was born and his mum and dad were like, Eternus?
Eternus.
Or was he like Gerald? And then when you become a Chaos Warrior, you get to pick a better name.
Well, okay, yes and no, because I've got a couple of things to say about this. Number one, my favourite engineer is Isambard Kingdom Brunel. Yeah?
Okay.
And that's a gangster name to become
Yeah.
like a really famous engineer. So I kind of sometimes feel like big naming your kids, right? And not giving them the like, oh, here's Gerald. No offense to anyone who's named their kid Gerald. Like, you've offended people enough. But like the, you know, you sometimes you think about having a kid, you think, I'm going to have to give them a big name. like just in case that they really like make it.
Yeah.
Like, but a lot of actors.
Yeah,
are
that's
the
a good
such.
starting point, I guess. You'd be like, kid, you gotta make it, so I'm gonna call you Absmaster 3000.
Absmaster 3000.
It's the next Arnold Schwarzenegger right there.
Good.
Some birthing you.
Yeah. Dude, I'm an engineer and I don't have a favorite engineer. You need to get Isambard Kingdom Brunel is a great engineer. Right, okay. Well, so this is a Turnus. Okay, that's a great question.
Yeah.
I like LLV says in the chat, and also lovely to see him. It's kind of like the He-Man series, Fisto. Like, what came first, the name, or did he fist people and became Fisto? That's the question.
Yes, it's important. You need to know these things.
You do need.
If
to
anyone
know
from Games Workshop is watching, not Peachy because he doesn't work there anymore.
That's true.
Could I have some narrative, please?
Or Duncan.
He went ages ago.
He went ages ago.
He still owes me some pain.
He does owe you. Fucking get pulling, Duncan. Come on, get pulling.
Gonna just tweet him every day. Day one. Pate's still not here.
Hello, Shugo, in the chat, and also Dude Our Day. Thanks for resubscribing, you absolute cutie. Right, okay, so this guy. Let's read the story because actually there's some really good underlying story here. The blade of the first prince was once one of Archeon's Varangard, a champion of the Eighth Circle known as Arturus. When he renounced Archeon at the feet of the Dark Master, kinky, he was thrust into lightning-racked, cursed skies. What does this remind you of, James? That swirl with the souls of slain Stormcast Eternals. Unable to return to Azir, he was burned alive by the divine lightning, only to be revived by Be'lakor, who breathed those trapped souls into him. Reborn as Eternus, this warrior pays for his immortality with undying fealty to Be'lakor, yet this gift may be plucked from him, the so-called lord and traitors, just as quickly as it was conferred. So Eternus wages a desperate campaign to keep his master satisfied, using spies and covert agents to further Be'lakor's plan to usurp Archeon as the exalted Grand Marshal of the Apocalypse, or, as Matt Barry would say,
And he's become a massive prick.
you can't hear that yet. But anyway, yeah. So what we're what we're effectively seeing is thank you to Jog in the chat, a dark cast Eternal.
Also, it also answered my question. He had a different name before he was evil.
It did,
or super evil.
Arturus, not Arthas.
Do you think there'll be a moment where if he wins, he'll be like, what's his name now? Eternus? Eternus, what are you doing? Succeeding you.
Succeeding you! Boom! We are riffing on the fact that Games Workshop have heavily implied and or stolen the character of Arthas from Wrath of the Lich King, who I think, and I'm not 100% certain this is true, is actually a riff off Rimmer from Red Dwarf. Not 100% certain I can validate that being true, but like something close.
That's a good Reddit thread, though.
Yeah.
That's a good Reddit thread.
Yeah, like you just imagine you start typing, the reason Arthas is like Rimmer from Red Dwarf, an essay. I would read that.
Interestingly,
yeah.
because it's been brought up in the chat, someone said he looks very much like Vander's Hammerhand, which I feel makes more sense. Now he's technically basically a Stormcast that's not good.
Well, so he's a Chaos Stormcast, right? Like literally everything about him. They're remade, reborn. So he's a Chaos Stormcast, which is kind of interesting. A couple of little other bits. His pose as a miniature is very reminiscent of the Ossiarch Bone Reaper's Xantos. Also Vander's Hammerhand. Also the Chaos Lord and Karkadrag. So like they very much have like this is the hero pose now for these miniatures.
Do you not think? I always think as like the cavalry heroes, especially ones that come in a box set, almost always follow the same tangent. Because there's Vander's Hammerhand.
Yep.
Now this guy, the Ossiarch lad.
Yep.
The other Stormcast on Bird that's a hero who he's got his sword to the side but is basically the same.
The Lord Aquila on Palador.
Yeah, that guy. And I'd be really intrigued when someone gets one of these to know if his belly is sculpted or flat.
Oh, yeah, underneath of the horse.
Yeah.
That is interesting. Great question. question. I'm not sure. Also, there's lots to unpack there. Number one, there must be a reason. They must know that they're riffing off the same models. Max Saul is saying in the chat, also is exactly the same pose as old Archeon on a horse.
Yep.
Which is kind of
you could
interesting.
reuse old Archeon on a horse.
Yeah, you could reuse old Archeon as a horse.
And then how much is that to Archeon? Because you're using him to undermine him.
Exactly. Right, that's pretty good. And then, as LLV's pointed out in chat, he also looks like the famous painting of Napoleon, if you've ever seen it.
Yeah.
Right? So, I think that's what they're ripping off. I think they've got a picture of that up in their wall in Games Workshop. I can't confirm or deny, but next to the church might be several pictures of Napoleon. Not guaranteed to be true. Okay, right. So, and then this kind of makes me question. So, Be'lakor is Be'lakor Sigmar's equal in power? Not really certain it's true. And then, if that is true and Be'lakor and Sigmar are kind of equal, are they going to be reducing the efficacy of Sigmar? Because he is just a god in a pantheon of gods. Yeah? Is Be'lakor, who I think is at godhood level now, going to create basically, are Chaos Warriors and Slaves to Darkness themselves going to become literally Dark Cast Eternals?
Which would be,
it seems
it's probably
like
time for the poor Chaos Warriors.
Yeah, I mean, because if you go through the Stormcast narrative, they've been losing their souls piece by piece through each reincarnation. So, now are they just kind of skipping ahead and being like, fuck it, we're just going to have Darkcast Eternals? Is that the plan?
But Be'lakor only has these little cloud shenanigans over a small area of all the realms, right? It's not everywhere.
That's true, yeah.
So maybe he's got, he can't... Because my problem is that, in theory, Sigmar never fights. Because if he fights, he wins, right? In theory.
Yeah.
Is probably the idea.
Yes.
So the issue is, right, if Be'lakor's that strong, he just walks up to Archeon, duffs him, then what happens?
I don't know.
Or is he too scared to duff him up?
You see,
Because then he gets scar
he would never be able to duff him up. Because of plot armor, James, mainly.
Yeah, and he puts him in the sword.
The greatest of all weapons. I would love it if one of the war scrolls was plot armor. This unit has a 3-up ward save.
One up ward. Only fails if you roll 16 ones on a row. Then loses 1 wound.
1 wound, yes. But anyway, okay, I think it's kind of a cool miniature, but I think a lot of people have pointed out it's quite... so he's on the stupidest named animal I've ever seen. This is the next bit.
Okay.
Atop the mighty Dracocephalus. I think I got that right. Dracocephalus. So there you can see it in the chat. Try and make this bigger for everyone. Dracocephalus. Anyway, all right. So, and we also showcased a little bit of his ability, which is kind of silly because we've actually seen his old war scroll, but whatever. Veins of black lightning, reborn in the cursed skies above the realms. Eternal soul is tethered to the mortal realms, etc., etc. Is that the Mount's birth name? Great question.
I forgot he's just the Green Knight, isn't he?
He's the Green Knight. Yes, he is. That's it. Me and James, chat. This is weird, but me and James originally a Bretonnian player. Me and James are about to become Bretonnian players again. We've started.
Well, I've also ordered a Bretonnian Blood Bowl team.
What are we doing?
Who knows?
Behind the scenes,
Who
in
knows?
Wargamer WhatsApp chat, and also in private messages, me and James are now just returning to Bretonia. And we don't
If
even
anyone
know...
wants to join the Bretonnian WhatsApp chat,
yeah,
every day. Are we out of Legends yet? Nah. All right, see you tomorrow.
We're probably going to go on square bases, and we're not sure why. Anyway, so Veins of Black Lightning. At the end of your movement phase, if this unit has been slain, roll 2d6 and add 1 to the roll if Be'lakor is in your army on the battlefield. Okay, so the average is 7 on 2d6. With Be'lakor, that would make the average 8. On an 8+, you can set up this unit anywhere on the battlefield more than 9 inches away for all enemy units with all wounds allocated to it removed. Okay. So a couple of stipulations. This works differently to several other of the if slain then return to the board mechanics. I feel like you could have just written on a 4+ because it's basically a 4+. But whatever. This podcast is sponsored by Squarebase, bringing you solutions you didn't know you needed. Correct? Yes. By the way, if anyone has any Bretonians they want to send me and James, please do let us know. We accept all Bretonian donations.
If anyone wants to send a small fortune, carry on.
Carry
If you've
on.
ever ordered a set of rings, you've got my home address. You know where I live.
Right, okay. Oh, James, did I tell you I set up a shop in the arena? Like, I sent you a picture earlier today, I think.
Yeah.
So we now, if you come to any events at the TSN Arena, we have a 3D printing shop. We have terrain you can purchase, which is great, and then we also have a bunch of miniatures you can purchase, and I'm really happy with it. Like, there's a range of different miniatures, and I think they're really cool. Put little price notes on them, and it looks super cute and super fun. And the only thing we saw this weekend was objective rings.
The best
I spent like 6 hours on Friday. I was like, this is going to look so good. And everyone came up and was like, these look great. I was like, oh, thank you so much. And they were like, I don't want them, though. I was like, now I understand why Games Workshop's so predatory. It's a hard sale. Like, it's a hard sell.
Meanwhile, 3 years later, just sweating here.
Yeah, just shifting plastic like it's going out of fashion. Is the shop open GD week? It is open GD week, Matt Readiness, actually. That's correct. Right, anyway, Veins of Black Lightning. So he basically comes back to life on a 4+, and that's all we know. That's the only story we've got so far. That's the news, James, or before we get to the big news, which is the main news of the show. So what are your thoughts on Slave to Darkness in the future?
I would like to almost see them be... I don't know, it's a hard one, right? Because part of me's like, it's time Chaos Warriors had their time in the sun.
Yep.
And were good. But then I also look at this guy, and I think, doesn't really match any of the Chaos Warriors.
What, as a design aesthetic or like the story?
No, as a design aesthetic, I don't think he quite matches. And I know that probably doesn't matter if you paint him the same. But I'm like, he looks a little bit different. I don't really like his little flags.
Oh yeah,
like,
the flags are interesting, aren't they?
Why is he the only lad on some whatever it was called? Like, I haven't probably paid enough attention, but I'd like to see him maybe come with like some more units that maybe look like him. And
Okay,
I'd like... Oh, carry on.
I was going to say, well, good news is we've actually seen, because of the new Warcry, and also I think just because they've been leaked and stuff, or I can't remember, it's either in Warcry or it's in something else, but we've seen the new War Scrolls, basically for the Chaos, not the Chosen, the other
Legionnaires.
ones. The Chaos Legionnaires, yeah, and that's kind of okay. We saw the War Scroll for one of the characters as well. That was kind of okay. The Legionnaires was kind of interesting, and then we saw them for one of the other units as well. So, like, we've seen a couple of the Chaos units already, and we've also seen the leaks from the books. The Minotaurs, unfortunately, don't look particularly good. The Chaos Legionnaires are kind of interesting. They've got some interesting mechanics. So, like, but it's that undivided keyword that's really interesting, because obviously we don't know what's going to be in the book. Most of these characters, especially Eternus, is going to have the undivided keyword, which is Bellacor's keyword. So we're effectively getting a 6th Chaos God, which is kind of cool, because we had... and it also really weird, because if you play Legion of the First Prince in Age of Sigmar at the minute, the way it works is you can only take Chaos Demons in your list. But obviously he's going to be mortal, and you're going to be able to take the undivided keyword. So I think basically you're going to have like Khorne, worst god, James, obviously. Tzeentch, best god. Nurgle and Tzeentch. And then you're going to have the Horned Rat, and you're going to have all the Skaven, copy and pasted, 75-year-old models. The year is 2070. There's a new Skaven book, and they've added 2 command traits. You can still buy Gutter Runners from 1995.
Oh, those Gutter Runners. They're the worst of that plastic kit, whatever they are.
Yeah. So like Jog says in the chat, we know that Eternus has got Legion of the First Prince keyword. So we're going to be able to build Legion of the First Prince armies with mortals in addition. So that's kind of interesting. It's really messing stuff up. But the bit that excites me is like, what the hell is happening? Are we going to get like these Darkcast Eternals? Is that the way that mortals are going in the realms? Like,
it's interesting, isn't it? Because what we're seeing slowly is less average Joes. And I almost think what I want now is more average Joes. Like that little, not Warcry, what's the other game?
Underworlds.
That one. Those little, like, witch hunter lads. Like, give me all of them. I might actually buy a new army. Give me all of them.
Yeah, shout out to
and some dogs.
yeah, shout out to all 3 Underworlds players over there in the world. Good luck to you. Hope it's going well. And then obviously the excitement that we're going to get Chaos Dwarves and we get a Hashut, Father of Darkness. So actually, all told, we might end up with like 7 or 8 Chaos factions, which is truly quite exciting in my personal opinion. Yeah, more Johnny Ghost Pants types of fellas. Games Workshop create the story. I agree. Okay, so yeah, like that's the news that's out at the minute. Pretty certain I don't think there's any other news for Age of Sigmar. That came
Help,
out today.
I'm Stux.
Huh?
Help, I'm Stux. Underworlds. First time chatter.
Help, I'm Stux. Underworlds. Woohoo! Hey, I'm so glad you did. James, I don't know if you missed the news, so I want to catch up a little bit as well. Chat, I'll catch up really quickly. Did you see there's a Cursed City expansion?
Yeah.
Did you? Did you see there's a Cursed City expansion? Okay,
Yeah.
what did you think? Do you know what's in the contents of the Cursed City expansion?
I saw that there's no models that
That's
you have
correct.
to. It requires you to buy models that weren't in the original set from Games Workshop to play it.
If you didn't buy the, I mean, why wouldn't you have bought the original set?
No.
It was sold out.
Yeah, well, there was that, but the models that you need to play this set aren't in the original set anyway.
Oh, well, they're not.
No, because you have to buy Radicar, the Beast,
Yeah.
and it's human form Radicar that's in the box set.
Oh, so you have to buy.
And then you have to buy the cool 3 vampire characters that were cool but had rubbish rules and have never probably sold. You have to buy all of them.
Okay.
To use this.
Oh, okay. Well, you know more than I. I didn't even know. So in order to use this expansion, the Night Wars, you must buy. I think it's something like £100 in England, obviously, worth of miniatures, and get them while they last. Later on in the year, if anyone would like to buy some miniatures from Games Workshops, in the UK, we will be accepting batteries of any sort, fully charged, of course.
So I think in the box you basically get a quest book, some extra tokens, and some cards.
Yeah. Someone's asked in the chat, by the way, wait, there's a new Cities book. No, there isn't a new Cities book, or one hasn't been announced. But we're pretty certain there's going to be a Dawnbringer Crusade book. In fact, my guess, James, and this is just a guess, zero information, is that actually I think the Dawnbringer Crusade book was meant to be the 3rd book out. I think we were meant to get Stormcast, the Uruk book, and then the Dawnbringer Crusade book. But I think production delays and other stuff has really caused that to happen. Now, that's just pure supposition based on why would they talk about the Dawnbringer Crusade and then not release miniatures for it? Because we know the roadmap until the end of the year, so why wouldn't you release miniatures for it within the first 2 years of that cycle?
Yeah, and the roadmap's changed, right?
Yeah, the roadmap has changed, yes.
Because I saw someone not happy about the change of roadmap today.
Yes, and also, in addition, like Jog says in the chat, they teased it a couple of shows ago, very much like they teased World Eaters. They were like, oh, here are some early mock-ups. But we then saw, because they did it with World Eaters, they were like, oh, here's an STL of what a chain axe will look like. And then we saw the leak of the fully heavy metal painted, fully done, in pictures Angron. Yeah, so I'm pretty certain that the Dawnbringer Crusade is fully done somewhere inside Games Workshop. Maybe Miniac can release it.
Maybe it's time, Miniac.
Yeah, come on, Miniac. Yeah. Where are the Doom Wheels? It's a great question, Romulan Dog. Okay, all right. So that's the last bit of news, James. You have to buy these 3 incredible like vampire characters. And then you get some tokens. So it's a tokens book.
I'd be really intrigued. So as a person that plays like other board games.
Oh yeah, you love board games. This is becoming like a summer thing, right?
Yeah, it's just a thing all the time. But like, I'm intrigued to see because I own like quite a lot of dungeon crawlers.
Okay.
Which is what this class is as.
Yeah.
And like, so I've got like Gloomhaven's a good example, which has a lot of cardboard models in and then a few models.
Yes.
But is like 200 to 300 hours of gameplay, I would say, probably in a box.
Yeah.
Retails at like 125 quid. So it'll be interesting to see like what this expansion retails for. Because I think having played some of Cursed City and finding it average as a board game, good models, average game. I'll be intrigued to see, like, if that box retails at more than £20,
Oh,
they're having a laugh.
the rules.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. I don't know, James. Honestly, good thing about Gloomhaven, James, also
Yeah.
is if you buy it, you'll be able to burn it in the winter to keep warm.
It's all right, I'm just replacing my kettle. Cost me 20 quid, but I'll save a tenner.
That's science.
Sorted.
That's science. All right. Okay. So Curse City. All right. That's the rules. Okay. Chat. Now get your thinking hats on now, chat, and YouTube people. This is the main point of the show today. Because I know James, like James said, he's had his head, like, not head in the sand, but he's been busy other places. So I thought what we'd do is we kind of catch everyone up with kind of like a state of where we're at game-wise, and also look to the future, because actually it's quite exciting, especially because we know what's being released. And then I thought we might talk about stuff that we would really like to see in Age of Sigmar, or talk about some of the armies and the way that we would like to see them changed. Because some of the armies have been fairly problematic, or some of the armies haven't been particularly good. So you can see the roadmap on the screen now, but for podcast listeners, I'll just shout it out. In the summer, we've already seen the FOMO box for this, and we've seen some rule changes already. We know Disciples of Tzeentch and the Lumineth Realm Lords are coming out. Then in autumn, they've shown that the Ogre Moor Tribes and the Sons of Behemoth books will be coming out. Unfortunately, not a combined book, the Dads and Lads Battle Tome. And then we know in winter that we will be getting the Slaves to Darkness book. The interesting bit is the Slaves to Darkness book seems to be a book released on its own, as opposed to being released in these like kind of like rhyming couplets, as we talked about. There are currently 22 factions in Age of Sigmar. I think that's right. It might be 22 or 24. So I think that they have to release roughly 8 battle tomes a year over the 3-year cycle that will be Age of Sigmar, because they re-release a game every 3 years. So if we take 40k as an example, 9th edition, we know 10th edition is next year. There's still a codex 2.5 years into the game that hasn't been released, which is Imperial Guard, which actually was one of the first codexes released in 8th edition, and so has ended up being nearly 6 years old as a book. Now, a lot of people talked about like armies not being supported in Warhammer Fantasy Battles, and that's why the game died. So we'll see. So did you notice a Turnus Battle and Skink Priest could be on the photos? Could be, yeah, could be. There could be some Seraphon leaks. It could be some Seraphon in there. It does also mean that we're not going to see a bunch of other stuff. So let's talk about that bit first, James, before we get into what we'd like to see from the books.
Yep.
This does mean a couple of like sad bits of news. Unless Gitz is also coming out in winter, this means that for the next 6 months to maybe, nearly a year, it looks like there's going to be no Gitz book. It also means that like some of the other books that maybe are languishing, like Cities of Sigmar is an older book, not as old, but an older book. Beasts of Chaos, which has had a great update in the White Dwarf, which has made it competitive, but it's still a very old book. It's still out there in the wild.
Very old models.
Very old models, very old book. Skaven got their book copy and pasted, so we're fine on that. Just shout out to Screech Vermin King, who always comments on every YouTube video I make saying, hey, when are you going to review the Skaven Battle Tome? We did try to do it, but it's just the same book, so just listen to the old review. That's what it's going to be. Flesh Eater Courts. Shugo makes a really good point. Flesh Eater Courts is one of the older books, released at the same time as the last Skaven book, not the new Skaven book. So OCR Bone Reapers is also an older book as well, released just after the last...
edition, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, no, it was released at the same time as the last Ogre book. So it's OCR Bone Reapers and Ogres at the same time. So that is, again, there's definitely second edition. So it's very old. Can we get a 5th Lumineth book? That's a great point. And Khorne is also a really old book as well. So these are all the kind of books.
That doesn't matter. They can go.
Yeah, chat. Don't forget, James is a foe, and he does hate Khorne. So
they can go. It's time. They're unsupported. Put your models in the bin.
Yeah. Just throw them away. So there are a lot of books. So James,
burn them in winter. Stay warm.
Chat, YouTube commenters, and James. Which of those books are you like a little bit peeved? Like, and it's completely okay to like. It's a hobby. So if football fans are allowed to get drunk, smash up bars and nightclubs, and stab each other, I reckon you're allowed to be a little bit upset that your Gits book isn't out this year. That's okay. I will accept mild to even pretty sassy levels of annoyance. I think that's all very okay. Because we haven't shut down that. So, James, which of those books are you kind of sad isn't getting an update soon? Chat, same question.
I'd like to see the Cities book.
Yeah.
Just because I'd like to see where they go with it. Because I also think there's lots of Cities kits that don't fit the game anymore.
I super agree with that, actually, James. I think actually the Dawnbringer Crusade was probably meant to replace cities, and maybe the old world recaptures a load of cities miniatures, and they become old world miniatures, and then they're like Dawnbringer Crusade, forget about the cities miniatures. So it does feel like some of the old world miniatures are probably on their last legs.
But I also, it's like that weird thing, isn't it, where you buy like handgunners slash militia or whatever they're called, because it's the same box, and you're like, I'm not sure your puffy trousers and like Kislev hat fit anymore, mate.
I mean, I wish they did. When we were in Canada, me and Tom actually, we went to a basilica, or the basilica, but I think a basilica is a type of church. Anyway, but there was just an old conquistador and a big statue outside, big floppy hat, pantaloons, sword, a glint in his eye, saying that he was going to subjugate the local population and steal all of their generational wealth. And I was like, what a cool looking figure. I would love to paint him. Maybe that's what's produced the Bretonnian love. But yeah, like Age of Sigmar, I don't think necessarily fit in Age of Sigmar anymore. But like,
I think some of the models have probably like seen their style like wafted slowly aside. Like the world's moved on, and those models are still the same. And whereas like the Skaven ones, horrific as they are as models, are still rat people.
Yes.
So therefore you're like, oh, you're still a rat though. Whereas I think like some of those cities models, probably more the human models than anything else. Maybe the dwarves, actually probably like all of those ones. I think the elves can kind of maybe manage. But I think like the humans now, you like, why have you got like an old Sigmar war altar for like the guy that just sends Stormcast down? Like, oh look, you're all worshipping Galmaraz, but that Celestin Prime that's in every other order fight, you can see it every day.
Yeah, all the time, every day, yeah, okay. So Cities is an interesting one. I think the one that makes a lot of people sad is Gits is also an older book, and generally isn't doing great. It also had that kind of weird thing where it's one of the few second edition books that didn't really have any sub-factions, so it made it seem like an Age of Sigmar 1 book, even when it was written in Age of Sigmar 2. So I guess there's a lot of like annoyance about that, which I think is super fair and valid, especially when you're seeing some of the books that we're about to talk about getting another book so early again into the edition. A new Khorne book would be really good, because Khorne is one of those really interesting ones where I think we are. This would actually make it the fourth Khorne book. Khorne kind of had like a very rapid series of books, it being the very original book to come out along with Stormcast. So that would be really fun. So I think Gits need it because they need like to actually write a Gits battle tome. It's got some war scrolls, but it doesn't have any of the overlapping allegiance abilities and other stuff. I would like to see Khorne become a fighting army. I don't really know. I'm kind of scared of a Khorne army that's more fighty than Ironjaws. I don't know how that's going to happen. I'm worried about that, but we'll see. Because or even Idothukin in loads of ways. But yeah, and then Osiark Bone Reapers is one of those other ones as well, where their RDP mechanic isn't really playing a lot of the Age of Sigmar 3 game. You can't redeploy, for instance, reroll charges, can't stand and shoot with RDP. So it would be really fun to see them be able to get their rules updated as well, right?
They're weird too, though, right? Because if you add all those rules, they lose RDP, which was their thing. Or do we think it's time that went now?
I think it's time that goes. Like they've got a really strong theme. Like, you know, you could very comfortably do an Uruk War Clans to the Gloomspite Gits book, right? You could have an entire set of allegiance abilities just for the Spiderfang, an entire set of allegiance abilities for the Moon Clan, and then same thing again for the Trogs, and then you could have a combined Gits kind of like Big War sort of scenario. Because I feel like they deserve and should get that kind of like level of love. And then with OCR arcs, you can really be like, do you know what? We had a crack at it wave 1, very much like the Sylvaneth 2nd edition book, and now wave 2 we need to do something else, because the RDP is just a terrible resource mechanic that doesn't really do anything. So I'd really like to see them revisit what they do with OCR Bone Reapers, because there's got to be some stuff they can do with it, I think. Storm Me Blessed in the chat says, I'd rather get OBR get mini expansion when they get a tome. Feels like the list is not very varied. Yeah, I mean, there's also the miniatures is also released at the same time, which is kind of fun. All right, James, should we talk about the upcoming books?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so we've got Disciples of Tzeentch and we've got Lumineth Realmlord. So we already know there's a FOMO box, and very much like all the other FOMO boxes, we've had a miniature for each of these two factions, and that's it.
Yeah.
Okay? One miniature. So, not a lot of miniatures. And then, James, you at one point collected Lumineth Realmlords. So...
Yeah, briefly.
So, we've known about these two books for a while. How do you feel about these two books getting... And chat, question to you as well. How do you feel about these two books getting... like, these two armies getting new books?
For me, like, I think Tzeentch is probably time. And I think they have struggled to ever get the Tzeentch book right. Like, horrors are a ever-running issue. Like, they've never quite got them right. They've never quite got them to work. Like, you think they work, and then people get annoyed because they just have to kill 9 million. Then they've rewritten that War Scroll 50 times. So I feel like if you had that last Khorne book, you've probably got 3 different War Scrolls. So I think like it would be nice to see that updated, and that's cool. The Lumineth book, honestly, just at a loss. Like, I don't think you need a book for one model. And if they're changing everything about how they work, like, it's too soon. Like, there's so many armies that haven't had an update. I don't understand why there's 4 books. 4 books? 3 books?
3 books for Lumineth.
Like, why they've had 3 books in 2 years?
It's a great question, and I think loads of it has got absolutely nothing to do with what like you'll hear like your online commenters talking about. They'll be like, well, actually, it needs to be written for this edition, and they really needed to structurally change it. Don't forget, these things are written probably about 2 years out. And so what's more than likely happened is they split. We already know that they split the initial book up because the first Lumineth Realmlords book had some clear references to some miniatures that were missing. Then we got Wave 2 of the Lumineth book, and we got those miniatures, and we got those updated rules, and it didn't change, kind of the Venari half of it. Then we got the rest of it, and then now this is probably the cohesive book. So what we actually got was an original book written, split into 2 or 3 parts. Now we're getting the final book, basically.
Which is basically, in some weird way, it's basically the same as when we had the original Stormcast book, then the Dracoth book, then the Merge book.
Yeah, in loads of ways, absolutely, yeah. Like, very much like with Uruk War Clans, they really hyped it up as they were going to do just a Crawlers book, and then they mixed everything together, and you're kind of like, what the hell is going on? So, I guess there's like a narrative conversation, and there's kind of like a bloat conversation, because Stormcast is a really good example of this, right? With Tzeentch is kind of an interesting one, because actually it doesn't have a lot of mortal elements to it. We saw the Celeste range re-released. Okay, yeah. Let's go back to production. Let's talk about production before we do anything else. How do they decide what's getting released? Okay, let's start there. This is what happens. The miniatures department just makes miniatures. It does not have, from Books and Box Games, it does not have, like, we want you to make these miniatures. Doesn't have that as a credo. They're not like, we need more Space Marines or Stormcast or Ogres. None of that. They just go, what do we want to make? And so that one of them's like, what if we make even more what if we make even more Slaanesh? Because I really liked it last time. And then they just make more Slaanesh. Yeah? Like with ogres, as an example, they might still not be certain what they want to do with ogres. Right? And there is some back and forth, obviously. They talk with the lore guys, they have a conversation with them, and they have that, and they will talk to the Books and Box games, but ultimately, they just produce what the fuck they want, and then Books and Box games and the lore guys, they have to then turn that into stuff that we want. A good example would be the Kronspine Incarnate. I very much doubt they were like, lads, could you just make one pretty shit-looking, like, swirly dagger monster? And they'll be like, yeah? No, like, that didn't happen. The scenery department made scenery. They made the Kronspine Incarnate, and then the rules guys had to come up with it. So what you're really seeing, kind of weirdly, is when we see books released, we're always just seeing people reacting to releases that they don't get to control, which I think is kind of funny. Because, like, that's the interesting part. Because they clearly at one point were like, can we have one miniature for each army, and we're going to put them in foamer boxes? And then they did a Lumineth one, and they were like, shit. Like, when are we going to do this? Yeah, right? That is really backwards. I know it is really backwards. I would like you to know I'm not in charge of how it works. That's how it works, right? Just as an FYI. Thanks to Miniac for letting me know. I work there. That's how I know. That's how it works. And so, James, that's why you see the Lumineth book and the Tzeentch book out now, because we've got those new miniatures for them, right? So, I guess the follow-up question is, that's why you've ended up with another Lumineth book and another Tzeentch book. Okay, so, James, do you know how these two armies currently are doing in the game and how they work?
No.
Okay, well, Lumineth Realm Lords works exactly how it always did. You just take 30 Sentinels and shoot shit, which is fun. But they do have loads of stuff that never sees play. Specifically, the big mountain goatmen.
Yep.
And the little mountain goatmen, which aren't dwarfs, James, even though they've got hammers and dwarven hats, and they're smiths. Not dwarfs.
They worship Hashut, though, right? Because they got him on the hat.
They do, yeah. They worship, they're good Hashut guys, right?
Cool.
And then, so those you never see in competitive play. Never see. Like, I don't think... okay, I only read 5-0 and 4-1 lists, and you don't see them in that section of the tournament scene. You might see them in other sections, but none others. Tzeentch actually had a bit of a revival. Hashtag trendsetter. I don't want to call myself an influencer, but here we go. With Nova, the largest Age of Sigmar event, James. Nova, the largest Age of Sigmar event this year. No, not this year, because there was obviously Worlds. But this General's Handbook that just happened this weekend, 140 players, and Caleb Walters just won it. Shout out to Caleb's mum. Caleb Walters just won it with Tzeentch. So nice. Tzeentch making a bit of a revival, basically, across the mortal realms. But again, some things it doesn't feature. Doesn't really feature Skyfires. Doesn't reach, like, it features Carrick Acolytes, but as screens. Yep. Doesn't really feature pinks. Doesn't really feature flamers or exalted flamers because they're rubbish. Generally, like, tends to be Kairos all the time. Sometimes an additional order change.
He's having a good day out, though, isn't he?
He's the best, right? Like, he's the best. So kind of like weird, like, so you've got a very polarized Lumineth book and a very polarized and narrow Tzeentch book is how they currently work. So let's talk about some of the units in the books and which ones we'd like to see get better. Chat, this is your time to shine. Who do you want to see get better? Because this is the time where I think the Lumineth book's kind of interesting because it's got just enough units. I think if you add any more Lumineth units, then it becomes really bloated like Storm. Do we all agree, and chat, this is your chance to tell me as well, and James, I think we all agree that there's too many Stormcast units. Whoa! I'm sorry.
Yeah, way too many. I think the problem with Stormcast is there's probably an okay amount of units, just about. There's maybe like too many foot lads.
Yeah.
But like there's a nice variation that looks like different enough that I'd be like, I want the cloaky guys, or I want the non-cloaky guys, or I want the newer, thinner lads. But I think like every time you get to the hero page of a Stormcast book, you're like, why have I got 42 heroes? So there's like 30 units and 42 heroes.
Yeah,
So that's their biggest issue, I think.
it is a massive issue. And I guess, like, whenever you're looking at an army, you really just want there to be a load of unit rolls, right? You want a light cavalry, a heavy cavalry, a monstrous cavalry, a monster, a little monster, a gang of monsters, a support character, a fighting character, a wizardy character. You know, and there's a bunch of, like, units. Like, Age of Sigmar's got a diverse set of rules, which is awesome. Yeah, like, there's so many units that just play a slightly different role. You know, a Lore Seeker plays a very different role in an army to, let's say, what a Butcher does. Even though they're both magic, like support piece fighting kind of units in some ways. And so, like, then you want your spear infantry, your bow infantry, your axe infantry. Yeah, you're completely naked with axes infantry. Yeah, whatever it might be.
Very important, those
Very
ones.
important, right? So you know you want a variety of different unit roles, but Stormcast book is just like golden dudes
do you know
with different
what?
weapons. Yeah.
I might have been wrong because I just clicked the little thing so I can follow along with what you're looking at in big. And on the web store, if you minimize by Lumineth Ramlords, 25 things to buy.
Yeah.
If you minimize by Stormcast Eternal, 65 things to buy.
65. Like
That's a lot.
It's a lot, especially when, like, this is what I really like about the Lumineth book, actually, and why I think you compare the Lumineth book to the Tzeentch book, and we can have a really good conversation about, like, what I'd like to see in the future for Age of Sigmar, but also what I think we'd all like to see. Because the Lumineth range was a range built from the ground up, and the Tzeentch book is a book that's a carryover from Warhammer Fantasy Battle Days. So it's not, like, completely built from the ground up. So, like, you've got a bunch of characters, right? So you've got the Caligrave, who's kind of a support wizard character. Then you've got the Venari
I don't
Bannerblade.
even remember that one.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Then you've got the Venari Bannerblade, who's a BSB, which is a cool, like, thing.
Old school as well.
Yeah, so do you know what? I really like them to bring back, I've said this time and time again, magical items. I just want to take different banners for different points. Do you know what I mean? You want, like, the 10-point banner plus 1 bravery, the 100-point banner fucking headbutt people. Whatever it is.
Everyone fights 6 times.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the banner of madness, 500 points. Yeah. Everyone fights 6 times. Yeah, right. So I would love that. That would be great.
But only if you roll a 6.
Of course. All right, let's talk about. We'll go through the characters first. Then you've got the Hurricane Wind Mage, who's only got access to the Lore of the Wind. Yeah.
Goku.
So that's Goku. So that's cool because you're like, oh, okay, this wizard's got access to this. Yeah. And then you've got the Lore Seeker, who's good for holding objectives and has got their own little role as well. So they're kind of fun. Very much like with Tzeentch, you've got the Changeling, who kind of does their little thing. So they've really been able to identify, like, different characters in loads of ways here. You got the Venari, the Leor, the Warden, but then also the other version of him, which is the Venari Lord Regent. I would like to see him be a little bit more fighty, James. In this version of Age of Sigmar, he's like a support piece. But
also in the famous cavalry pose.
Also in the famous cavalry pose, yeah. I would really like to see him be very fighty because, like, the Light of Altharian's kind of like one of those really interesting pieces. If no one knows, the Light of Altharian, which you can see here, is
I think that's one of my favourite Lumineth models.
Yeah, and he's got, like, a really good unit role, right? Like, he's a duelist. Like, he's a jeweler. And you're like, right, yeah, like, sometimes you just want, like, what does this guy do? He just fucks. He's just on a 40 mil base, and he just fucking runs around and murders shit. And you're like, all right, that's what I want. Like, I really want the Light of Altharian. So, like, and I wouldn't mind the Venari Lord Regent basically doing the same thing. Just being a mini monster that just goes and fights and murders stuff. That would be cool. Like, I'd like them to see, like, James, like, which armies, you know how you play Skaven at the moment?
Yeah.
So you know how, he's not the Vermin Lord. Who's the on-foot character for Verminus? The Claw Lord.
Yeah.
You know how he is not a fighty character?
Yes.
Yes. That's what I mean. I think that's one of the main things that we're missing in Age of Sigmar right now, is we're missing fighty characters. Little duelists that can... Because oftentimes, I think a Claw Lord normally loses to, like, a 10-man infantry squad of something.
Yeah, I also, like, it's interesting, right, to be a complete nerd, slightly obsessed with a computer game at the moment.
Okay. Which one?
Like, to a high level. It's called Conqueror's Blade. It's a free-to-play thing.
Okay.
I've played it for a little while on and off. I've talked about it once before on the show, but now it's intense. Now I'm in a guild. Now twice a week I go to war.
Oh my God, you're in.
Yeah, Tuesday nights, Saturday nights. Forget what else I'm doing. I'm at war. Fighting to territory.
Wow. How's your guild doing?
Well, it's a new season, so we'll find out. We're in Rome now.
Oh, wow. Good luck.
But basically, so that's weird, right? Because you're basically a hero that controls a unit. So if you imagine Total War with your little hero lad, but then you control just one unit. And it's interesting because in that your hero is better than the units. But if you fight like one rubbish unit, you probably kill them all. But if you fight like 6 units, you probably die. And if you fight like a good unit that's full people, so probably 20, they kill you too. So it would be nice to see, like, I like to see the duelists, so they're like Altharian, good against a hero.
Yeah.
But probably gets mobbed by like a good unit.
Okay, yeah.
Takes them down with them, but probably dies.
The question in the chat is, what was that video game called again, James?
Oh, the video game's called Conqueror's Blade. You can find it on Steam. It's there.
Yeah, okay, there you go. Eric in the chat says, fully agree with this, but isn't it more of an effect of small characters being killed off with an afterthought? Not everything can have a 4 at ward. I reckon that your 6 wound, 5 wound character on foot can have a 4 at ward. I don't think it hurts anything. Unless they have some, like, I think the reason they don't right now is because back in Age of Sigmar 1 days, they used to have a command ability. And if that character had a command ability and he had a 4 at ward, like, not that he did, but if he had a command ability that was game breaking and you couldn't get to it, then they basically got to use the command ability all the time. So I think they're kind of scared of their own success. But the Light of Altharian, I think, is a really great example of what I would like to see the Lord Regent as a cavalry piece be, personally. But there we go. So I would really like that. Grenadi says, why can't a small hero have like 20 wounds? It's a good point as well, right? Like, this is one of the reasons that they've always been really, really bad for writing war scrolls for monsters that aren't mounted by a character, because they most oftentimes don't give them like anything good, if that makes sense. Like, a good example of why Gargants are so good is they're just 35 wounds. It's like, we're just a shit ton of wounds, bro. Like, and so, you know, they kind of point them for that. So I feel like you could definitely do like although if you go over 10 wounds, then you can be seen by shooting and a bunch of other stuff. But I feel like you could definitely just stick a shit ton of wounds on. Or you add a 4 at ward and it's the same difference, right? Basically.
Yeah. And also I think like it makes it more clutch, right? A 4 at ward.
Yeah.
Because there's a chance you fail them all and then they're dead.
Yeah. Hello to Warpforge Streams. What do I want for AOS? Blood Knights on foot with swords and shields. Oh, me too. Warpforge Streams. Also, great streams coming out from him. Loads of good stuff. Okay. So we've kind of done the character. Have we done all the characters? No, we haven't. We touched on a couple of others. We've got Severith and the Hurricane Wind Spirit. James, a little bit polarizing in a minute. In fact, there's actually a tournament coming up where their ability to move block has been banned. So
I did see. I read that. Some of that pack.
Insane, right? Insane.
Yeah. No, I enjoyed reading the comments. As a person that's not going and doesn't care, like, it was a nice pile of comments to read.
Yeah, that's true. So what do you think about the Wind Spirits, chat? They were the bane of previous Age of Sigmar, but they're currently not taken in almost any Age of Sigmar lists. Little side note. Not really sure why, but I've seen very few Lumineth Realm Lords armies taking them. So do you think they should lose the move thing, James?
I think it just needed some more thought.
Well,
like, what do they move? 30 odd?
I think they move 24 inches.
Like, that's quite. I think for me there was a point where someone was like, "How far does this move? How far do we go? Blah 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 blah." All those were thought through, and then someone made the board smaller.
Yes, I agree. I agree with that. Yeah, they weren't done line because they're kind of interesting, right? Hurricane Spirit of the Wind is mainly a archer unit. It's a very fast, mobile hero archer unit. So as a role, it's quite interesting to like think around, especially when you think about the Star Shard Ballista, because when you're able to move really far with like a really good shooting unit, it's way better than just a very mobile ballista unit. Because I feel like the ballista could be lots better. Like it could just it could just have a really devastating kind of like 18-inch shooting attack, like which would make it really good, and you'd see more of them on the tabletop. Whereas the Hurricane Spirits of the Wind,
the little guy peppering you with single arrows does more damage than the big ballista.
Right? Yeah, and then also can grab objectives, can move block. So, I'm not necessarily certain what I think the answer might be, but I would really love to see the Wind Spirits get their War Scrolls changed and do something. Maybe they can give an aura around their army where they speed the army up. Not that it needs to be any faster. It's crazy fast. And then James, so they kind of fit in the same role for me, and I think you never see the Starshard Blister at the minute, and you never see the Wind Spirits. So then you've got the Stone Mage. And then you've also got Elinor and Arthalanor, and honestly, I don't care about them. There's just too many characters at this point. I just don't care.
Also, it's been quite a while since they've been on the actual Games Workshop store.
Yeah.
Jazz is expensive.
What, £27.50 for the Stone Mage? Is that what you're saying?
Well, it was more the Dawn Riders, that's a tearjerker.
How much the Dawn Riders? 40 quid for 5. Wow. Yeah, that is pricey. That is pricey. Okay, well, let's talk about as we've seen the Dawn Riders. Let's talk about the Dawn Riders and the Wind Chargers, right? So those are our two cavalry units. But what's nice about them is they fit different roles, right? One's I wouldn't say it's a heavy cavalry unit, but I wouldn't say it's a light cavalry unit. So I guess a cavalry unit, a medium cavalry unit, right?
The Dawn Riders were on here, right?
The Dawn Riders, yeah.
I'd say they're almost like a fast attack medium armor.
Medium armor, not heavy armor, right?
But they're fast.
Yeah, I would like them to be able to charge into infantry, do lots of work, which is what they previously their War Scroll used to do. But they don't have but they still weren't taken in events, right? They weren't taken.
Because although they're fast, people could hide from them, and you could just take some archers that shot as further than they could run, and didn't care about people being hiding.
Yeah. Well, one of the good things that the Total War series does is it gives units either the anti-large or the anti-infantry kind of keywords.
Yep.
And I do like that. I do like that, you're okay, this is a cavalry unit and it's specifically good into infantry, whether it's got some sort of War Scroll ability that does it or whatever. Ignoring bounty hunters and all that other stuff at the minute. So I think I would definitely like to see that be an anti-infantry unit, which it was, but still wasn't taken. So I don't really know why it wasn't. So
because I think there's that weird min-max thing, right? And the max consistent was Sentinels, whereas Dawn Riders were good against lots of people, and then you'd go into Gargant and you'd be like, now they're not so good.
Well, yeah, I think one of the major problems is that the army built itself in such a specific way, because the Shrine, Luminor, so your terrain piece gives you so many buffs, so many good things. Your Wardens aren't particularly fast, so you can't, I'll build a Sentinel, I'll build a castle, and then you put 30 Sentinels in, which are crazy good, and all of a sudden you're the list writes itself, right? In those ways. The Dawn Riders are an interesting... Sorry, the Wind Chargers, so the Kangaroo Riders are an interesting one. So I guess they're a light cavalry skirmish unit with bows. And I would really like to see some sort of maybe different role for them, I guess. Because previously they worked really well because they had a War Scroll battalion that worked well with them. They also had a sub-faction that worked really well with them. And I don't really know what they need to get back in the game, if you will, but both of the cavalry units don't really have their place. And I would really like the Wind Chargers to be good, because when they were hyper mobile, they had a really fun rule. Maybe they could get an ability like we've seen with the archers for Sylvaneth, where if you charge them, they run away or something. Even though that's a pretty negative experience. Having just played Fangs of Sotek this weekend, James, hated it. They just run.
Good times. I think but there's. I don't know. It's a hard one, isn't it? It's a hard one balancing some of that. I think, I guess if they were rolling, I don't know, a 5 up to retreat, not so bad.
Yes.
Yeah, they were weird. I played those once, I think, and it was a painful experience of just watching them move for 3.5 hours.
But do you want the because they could just be their job could just be grabbing objectives. Maybe that's what they could be good at, right? Like they could be moving. I think the problem is they also were quite killy previously. Whereas if they were
I think
if they were a unit that was
maybe,
just good at bopping around.
Yeah, and like even if you gave them like what's it called, like Ride the Winds Etheric or whatever, where you just every phase can teleport 9 and make them like okay shooting, but every turn they teleport 9.
Yes, agreed.
Easy.
Some other little. So I think they need something like bop around. Charging enemies can't pile in. I kind of hate that. Like if you succeed a charge, then someone's like, "Well, guess what? Still can't do anything, dickhead." That's terrible. Like applying debuffing on a unit could be fun. And then you've got the Blade Lords, and you've got the Wardens, and you've got the Stone Guard. And I guess in some ways you've also got the Sentinels as well. So these are your infantry, right? Now they've all got different weapons. But the Wardens are in a kind of interesting place. So you've got the Wardens, the Stone Guard, and the Blade Lords, right? So these are your 3 melee infantry units, which is quite a lot of melee infantry units to get, right? Especially when they're all kind of the same. So, like, what do you really do to differentiate them? And I think that was the problem in the last book, is they did try to do something to differentiate them. Like the Stone Guard are more tanky and defensive, and the Wardens are more killy, but they were also...
Which is the worst.
Which is the worst. But they were also very, very defensive. So they were defensive and killy, and then Stone Guard were just defensive. And then the Blade Lords, situational Blade Lords, were just kind of fighty, I guess is the right way to describe it.
Weren't they just bodyguards, basically?
At one point they were bodyguards, I think, in one of the books. Now they've kind of got situational. Like, if they're fighting infantry, they do one thing. If they're fighting something else, they do something else. Like thralls. So I wouldn't mind seeing... I don't really know how to differentiate between them, basically.
I think, like, for me, if I'm looking at them, I'm like, Spear Wall.
Yep.
Shouldn't hit hard. Shouldn't
hit hard. Unless you charge them.
If you charge them on something, you take mortal wounds. But just when you charge them. Then in combat, like, give them a 2-up save. Like, give them a 2-up save.
Is this the Wardens with the spears?
Yeah. So the lads with the spears, give them a 2-up save. Maybe give me wounds if I charge them. I don't know if it really matters. But, like, give them a 2-up save. But give them, like, 4s to hit, 4s to wound, no rend. 1 damage.
Okay. Yeah, I see what
But
you
they
mean.
don't die. And maybe I can't retreat from them because they're just poking me the whole way home. Or like -2 to your move if you retreat. So if you're a slow lad, you're not getting out of there.
Yeah,
maybe. Or mortal wounds when you leg it. I don't know. But I think like they shouldn't be fighty, but they probably shouldn't be dying. Yeah. Especially if they have the thing like maybe when they're like I don't know if that exists in this book obviously, but the Shining Company thing.
Yeah.
Like maybe make that so they're a 3-up save to a 2-up save. You can't retreat from them at all. Like if they don't break that, something like that. But they don't need to be fighty. They should be there to hold your line. Well, them hammer lads.
Well, exactly, because they kind of weirdly worked, aren't they? The guys with the shields and the big pikes were very killy, and then the guys with no shields and massive hammers were the defensive ones, and it didn't really make much sense, right?
Yeah.
Like the hammer lads should just beat people up, I think.
Hammer lads.
Yeah.
Hit like a truck. Like made of paper because they're a skinny elf, no armor barely, aren't they? Just in a robe.
Yeah.
Bit of armor. Like 4-up save, hit like a truck. 3s, -2, 3 damage. Fine.
Yes.
Like hit like a truck, die like paper.
Yeah.
Great. Done. They're fine. They don't need to ignore rend anymore.
But then I think the problem is we come to the Blade Lords and we're not sure what to do with them, right? Like
I think they, for me, they just have like maybe 2 profiles. One, like 2. What do they call it? Like almost like a fighting stance. Like hold the sword with 2 hands, hit hard, do a load of damage, but if you miss, you're doomed. And like hold the sword with 1 hand and go do a load of attacks. Like 2 attack profiles. 1 kills monsters and heroes. 1 kills infantry.
Okay, yeah, I like that idea.
And they can be faster, I think, because hammer lads should be slower because they're carrying a big hammer.
Yeah, or you could give them a third profile which just does like a ward save or something, like because they're parrying a load of
Defensive,
shot, right?
yeah.
Yeah, like a defensive one.
Only in hand to hand or something.
Yeah,
but
and then,
you could, yeah.
Yeah, and then you're just never allowed to take them. You're never allowed to take them as like battle line, right?
Sure.
All right. Because it's going to be interesting. Let's talk about the final element of this now. The final element when we're talking about what the hell are these called? Lumineth Realm Lords, is they had a ton of allegiance abilities stacked on top. Shining Company. So it's kind of interesting, like, especially in comparison and being released in conjunction with Tzeentch. Tzeentch have, if you are wholly within range of a demon hero, only the demon part of the book was -1 to hit in melee. Whereas these guys were like, just stand next to each other, -1. And you're like, is that your allegiance ability? They're like, no, it's not. Our allegiance ability is we have an Aether Quartz reserve and we can use that for a ton of different cool stuff. You're like, okay, that's a great resource, especially when command points are weak or whatnot. They're like, no, that's not a resource. We're all also wizards and we've got loads of great utility spells. Like, no one else, I don't think no one else. Maybe no one else has a double move spell? I don't think anyone else has a double move spell.
No, it's just Lumineth, I think.
they're like, we've got a double move spell, we've got a reduce your bravery spell, we've got double your command point spell. Like, we've got like a ton of stuff, which is just crazy strong.
A big ward bubble.
Big ward bubble, like so many good things. So like they're like, okay, you're the spellcasting army. No, we're the fighting army. We're the shooting army. So like I feel like that they were never forced to polarize into one spot, and so instead they were like it became an army about being hyper efficient, just because everything was so hyper efficient about the book, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like the big ward bubble only if you bring Teclis, according to Aradam in the chat. But yes, there was also a mini ward bubble that just you could also take, which was quite fun as well. So like that was also a thing in of itself.
But not many armies have a ward bubble spell, right?
No, they don't, James.
Just these.
No, they don't.
Like if you go that way, you're like, oh, we have the double move spell, the cost you 2 CP spell, the ward bubble spell.
Our Cathalar makes it so that you just take our battle shock tests on your units instead.
The mortal wound spell.
Yeah.
No. There is a mortal wound spell, isn't there? That wasn't one I was thinking of. Oh, yeah, the mortal wound spell where all your weapons just do mortal wounds.
A teleport spell, like loads of spells. So like I think the thing that I would really like, and Lumineth Realm Lords players might be annoyed with me, is I would like to see a lot of those allegiance abilities removed. Or, there's also an ethereal spell. Thank you, HMS Banksy. They had literally everything that you could want in an army. And I think they also paid the points for it. So one of the things that I think would be really positive in lots of ways would be for them to strip some of that back, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it'd be... I think like there's a load, and I also think it's one of those weird ones, a bit like some other books, where sometimes you have particular armies and you'll play someone who's got them and they'll be like, have you played this army before? And you're like, no. And they're like, here's my 42 pages of like AOS reminders.
Yeah.
I'll see you in half an hour.
He's into crypto now. He doesn't do that anymore.
Fair. Well done him.
Yeah. So I think just going back to the kind of original book, we got Lumineth Realm Lords. I think so. If anyone in the chat doesn't agree, thinks it should keep all of its utility, I'd be very interested. I mean, Teclis does need a range of spells, but I almost feel like Teclis could have his own spell lore. Just be like, this is Teclis' spell lore because he's Teclis, versus like there being like a generic spell lore that he can get. Like you can have access to everything, which is pretty crazy. Other than that, I think they need to make yourself known so Ron can ban you. Yes. If you think they need less, let's ban you. And they also have their War Scroll spell. Where they can also change their mortal wounds from 6s into 5s. Like no one else can do that, which is just wild, right? I'd make the unit use of magic cost and Aether Quartz fixed. Yeah, okay, something like that. Right, okay. So let me know what you want to do in the comments for this book. Tzeentch is an interesting book, James. If we move on to Tzeentch, I actually can't bring it up on the Games Workshop web store because it won't load. I don't know
What?
why.
They've stopped selling it?
No, they haven't stopped selling it. But when I click Disciples of Tzeentch, it won't load. So I can't go through the units like that, which kind of scuppered me today. I wasn't really expecting the multinational company to not be able to let me see some of their units. But yeah,
Oh, there isn't anything on here, is there?
you click Tzeentch and it just doesn't let you look at anything.
Well, there's one item in there, apparently.
What is it?
Oh, hang on. Mine's come back.
Mine doesn't work.
Mine is thinking about life.
Who isn't thinking about life?
It's still thinking about life. Oh, there must be like a third-party place that has them all.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, go find us that. That's clever. Yeah, it hasn't worked for days. Interesting. Okay, well done, GW. Just losing money. Aren't they currently selling a FOMO box in relation to this faction?
Yeah, it's sold out though.
They are the worst company. They fail upwards so incredibly well. It's amazing. Eric Games Workshop's only trolling you. Yeah, they must have known I was doing the show today. All right, well, let's talk about Tzeentch. I'll talk about...
Here we go. Here we go. It's not quite as pretty.
Okay,
but,
not quite as pretty. Get me a link. Okay,
yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay, let me... let's get a...
I think this is everything.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
It is. It's not as pretty, though, so we'll try and go through it a little bit. Okay. So, talking about Tzeentch, let's talk about high level. Competitive events, you see a little bit. Kairos is an auto-include in every Tzeentch army. Yeah? So, Kairos is everywhere, James. Yeah? Let's talk about the sub-factions. They've got some really good sub-factions, which we thought were going away with Age of Sigmar 3.
Yeah.
Sorry, but
no.
but not. No. So, I wouldn't mind their sub-factions really splitting them out, because I think that would be really useful, especially because they don't actually have a lot of mortals in their army. So you've got Carrick Acolytes, which are a mortal battle line.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they suck. You have Zangor.
And always have.
Yeah, you got Zangor, but they're Beasts of Chaos.
Yep.
But they could fulfill a role, especially because the Lords of Change, kind of beastie stuff. It's kind of interesting if you look at the Sinesh release and you got all of these mortals of Sinesh, and their demon release was also massive. Tzeentch has actually got quite a small roster.
There isn't many models, right? So you've got 3 battle line options.
Yeah.
Zangor, Carricks, Pinks.
So depending on what your sub-faction is, you can have Flamers as battle line, which I think is cool.
Yep.
You can have Screamers as battle line, which I think is cool. So I don't mind to see them carrying on like that. I also maybe wouldn't even mind seeing Lords of Change as battle line, which I think would be quite fun. Because I wouldn't mind seeing a Lord of Change that wasn't a character.
Just a monster.
Just a monster. Just like a magical demon monster that's just maybe got a good shooting profile, maybe got a good combat profile, or maybe one that's got a good shooting profile, one that's got a good combat profile. Because that would look pretty sick on the board, right? 3 Lords of Change, maybe Kairos behind them. That would look, I think, at least fun. It doesn't have to be great, but I think it would look fun. Yeah, I would love that. Oh, yeah, Mutant Vortex Beast. We need to talk about that in a minute. So they've got a load of sub-factions. They've obviously got a load of spell laws, but in comparison, weirdly, in comparison to Lumineth Realm Lords, it's fun that they're being released together, they are not a magic army. In comparison. To Ogres, they're very much a magic army, right? But most of their wizards, including a Lord of Change, are 2 casts wizards. So it's a bit rough. And I would like to see that go up to 3 casts.
And Lord of Change, no benefits to cast, right?
Yeah, Lord of Change has got, you roll 2 dice, and you match the lowest to the highest dice.
Which is the same as Kairos. They all have the same.
Yes. Which is kind of okay. They do that for Dispelling and Unbinding as well, and that's pretty...
Okay if you roll a 6.
Yeah, basically. But I wouldn't mind to see the Lords of Change, because at the minute you are Kairos is so good versus the Lord of Change.
Yeah.
I'd either like to see the Lord of Change get cheaper, or I'd like to see Lord of Change go up in power, basically. Like we saw the Great Unclean one. The Great Unclean one became stonker. It became crazy good. Yeah. So
Big lad.
Big lad. Yeah. So that would be good. Talking about the other characters they've got, they've got like such an array of units. So the Zangor Shaman, basically just a fast wizard with a kind of okay spell. Yeah. They've got the Ogroid Thermitage.
Also a beast of chaos.
Also a beast of chaos. Yes. You got the Ogroid Thermitage. Now
Yep.
he's kind of interesting because he's like a really good, like almost in that melee character range that I told you about. But I wouldn't mind him being a 2-cast melee character, and also he's a beast of chaos as well. Like also, but it would be good if he was like a big fighty monster, right? Like because he's just a fucking big Minotaur. You want him to like slap.
Should probably skewer someone with the horn.
Right? And then there should be some spells in the lore so he can, like, magically power himself up and go fight. Like, that would be awesome to see. The Gaunt Summoner is an interesting one. At one point, a little bit broken, James.
No. Disagree.
Yes. Right? Because you've got the Gaunt Summoner, the Magister on disc, and then the Gaunt Summoner on disc.
Yep.
And then you've also, I think you can also throw in the Zangor Shaman as well. So you have a bunch of like wizard characters,
who can be fast,
but they don't really do anything. Like they don't really have an identity.
Yeah, I think like the Gaunt Summoner was interesting because like when he acquired a load of pinks from somewhere and put them down,
yeah,
like was good, but then when you lost that, or like half of that, then you looked at him and went, it doesn't do a lot.
No.
Like
also,
his War Scroll spell not great. He's casting no benefits.
Yeah. Like I would like in my personal opinion, like this army should be the army that has the most weirdly out there rules. Like they should be able to like flip the tables and do so many weird things, like, and they can't. Like, and you're like, if any army is going to be able to like completely change the material nature of the game, you really do feel like it's going to be the Tzeentch book. We haven't even thrown in the Blue Scribes as well, which is just a unit for reroll casts. That's its entire purpose for existing.
The 2+ weak caster spell is pretty cool too.
Yeah, that's cool, right? Like, it gives it an identity. And I think, like, someone was pointing out that, like, with the Zangor Shaman, if you do some Mortal Wounds with its War Scroll spell, you generate some gore, a bit like Belladama, but, some Zangor. But I think a Zangor unit has to be nearby, and I would really like to see that change to that you just generate, like, D3 Zangor next to the
unit. You could even give it Screech rules, where, like, you just do damage and that many Zangor appear. Like, don't have to be in combat. They just pop out, and you get little units of, like, 3 lads.
Right, that's really interesting. Stuff like that. We talked about the Magister on disc creating a spawn, like Kairos creates a spawn. So I don't hate all that stuff where you kill stuff and you generate it, but I really do feel like you want to lean into it. So the Gaunt Summoner does it, but he generates, I don't know, Screamers or something. Yeah,
Brims.
Brims or a Flamer or something. Yeah, whereas the Magister does it, and then you get spawn. Like, you feel like that they've got some real options there to identify it, because then when you actually get into the units, that's where it gets really interesting. And I did say this last year. Yes, Pink Horrors have been too good or just a little bit of a very difficult unit to deal with and process. But you take them away, you've just got 10 shit Carrick Acolytes, yeah, or 10 Zangor, which don't link with any of the rest of your army. Like I said, the Locus for -1 to hit only affects demons. So as soon as you know that, you're like, well, I'll only take demons. Right?
I also think, like, when I did a Tzeentch army, like, the other problem is the Footlads are rubbish, whatever they're called. Acolytes rubbish.
Correct, yeah.
And they've always been rubbish, which is really annoying because they're probably one of the prettiest models in this range.
They're cool, right? Yeah, they're very cool.
Like, they're wicked. And then the Zangor just, like, have that weird line where, like, they're actually a Beast of Chaos model, and they can't not be a Beast of Chaos model. Like, they're always going to have that on their War Scroll.
Okay.
So I think, like, for me in my head, the issue is then, like, you put them as the good battle line in this book. So let's say we suddenly go, do you know what? Zangor, they're a wizard.
Okay.
They cast on themselves. They give themselves flaming weapons. They're all +2 damage. they're really good now. And we go, oh, that's cool. They make good battle line in Tzeentch. And then you go, oh, every Beast of Chaos player's just added them to their
Like
list.
every single one, right? Like every
And
single
now
one.
they're like -4 rend, +2 damage. Oh, your whole army's dead in 2 minutes.
Yeah, yeah. I get that it's a difficult book, but it's a really good book to talk about in conjunction with the Lumineth book, where they're just like Tzeentch doesn't like. If you flipped it, it would make so much more sense if all of the spells that the Lumineth have access to were given to Tzeentch. They're like,
Yep.
you've got a teleport spell, you've got an ethereal spell, because you're changing the immaterium, and they're completely like opposite, which is so fucking weird. And that's the bit I really don't like about it, because I think the Tzeentch book doesn't really have an identity. Or to quote who was it in the chat? Grubby. There's always been a problem with Tzeentch being magic being direct damage, but not as good as like other direct damage spell laws. Or it's pretty good. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, there's the access to loads of D6 mortal wound spells in the book, which are quite rare generally in Age of Sigmar. But a D6 mortal wound spell that you have on a 400-point bird versus 30 fucking bow dudes that shoot you from 30 inches just aren't really in the same league. Like, it just doesn't. It's not the same thing.
You almost, as we talk through this, like in my head, I'm like, I almost want this to have like a load of really good spells. Because there's enough people to cast a load of really
I'd like
good
a load
spells.
of utility spells. I don't necessarily want, I really don't necessarily want like damage spells, although that would be nice as well, because where does the damage come from the army? I'd like loads of like Tzeentch is the changer of ways, and there's not a teleport spell. Come on. Like,
But I also think like you could give them like a whole bunch of damage spells. They don't even have to be high damage spells. They could all do D3 or D6.
yeah.
But we could have it so every single one of them summons something.
Fun. Yeah, like we talked
here's
about.
Here's a D6 damage spell, right? And whatever damage it does from 1 to 6 summons a Chaos Spawn on that much health.
Yeah.
So I do 1 damage, I summon the Chaos Spawn, but he's on 1 health. And you could almost make the units not amazing, but I could have loads of them. Because not only have I put some down to begin with to stand in the way of all my nice wizards, but then every turn I'm bringing out like D3, 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 D3. So I suddenly become complex in a weird way of having lots of little things rather than like being hitty, because I'm not, but I'm controlling the board through a weird like summoning, bringing things out the ground, doing chip damage.
I love that. I love the idea. Because you kind of see that build already, right? With some of the characters, specifically Kairos all the time. Like,
and
the amount of spawn that I generate is crazy. So like, you've got a couple of ways to go there, right? You've got change the spell laws, so you're doing a bunch of like spell changes. I'd love to see that, so you're affecting the board state. Or like you just said, all their spell casting just makes the board even more fucking crazy, because you're just like summoning all sorts of not necessarily even good stuff, just stuff.
I think it gives you that weird. It would give you that weird thing, like all of the stuff that Tzeentch does narratively is tricks and traps, right?
Yeah.
So in my head, it's like, oh, you walked forward. I've cast on you. I've summoned 5 pink horrors. They now turn into they still turn into blues, and they still turn into brims, but they don't have a save, and they're 1 wound each. So actually, it's like 8 wounds. No save. You've just got to hit them. But while you're hitting them, my little quick wizard has popped over there, hit your unit, summoned 2 spawn, taken the point off you.
Something fun.
Or
right?
I teleport your unit. So my wizard goes over there, cast on an 8, teleport your unit, I take the point.
Yeah, like that's
because I'm Tzeentch. Like, I don't need to teleport me, I teleport you.
Yeah, because you're Tzeentch. Like, no one has a problem with Skarbrand literally fucking the earth when he attacks. Yeah? Like, no one has a problem. They're like, what happened? Skarbrand attacked and he destroyed everything. Everyone's super okay with that. But, like, God forbid a Lord of Change casts 3 spells and does something a bit interesting. Like, dear God, right? So
I think there's an issue in Warhammer, and I'm sure I've been part of it. But where like an army at points has been disgusting that we almost don't forgive them, and like there was a point in 2, Age of Sigmar 2 wins,
And 3.
and Skyfires on discs were disgusting.
Yeah.
Was
Yeah,
that
yeah.
1
That
or
was 1.
2?
So one,
One.
It was Skyfires. 2, it was
Yep.
Change Host, and then
Yep.
it was also Change Host. Well, and then not Change Host, and then it was Tzeentch Archeon in
Pink.
3. So they've
Yeah.
always been. The problem is though, they've always been very, very good, but not because of like their constitute units, just because of some additional stupid rule that they wrote, right?
Yeah.
A Lord of Change needs to be a nightmare. I agree with that. So let's talk about some of the other units, because we talked about the kind of the characters and the overarching theme of the book, because there's a bunch of that, and then you kind of got the interesting battle line choices. You got pink horrors, which I really like the pink horror mechanic. And I know lots of people don't, and lots of people have played lots of pink horrors, don't enjoy it, and that's because at some points they've been too cheap. But right now, with Pink Horror War Scroll the way it is, and 10 Pink Horrors costing 255 points, you do not see Pink Horror spam lists. You don't see. They're also Galician veterans, which is also a problem as well. So maybe that's also adding to it. But there's a bunch of reasons why the Pink Horrors aren't currently on the tabletop in any number at all. So they're kind of like okay right now, and I don't hate what they've done with them. And they're pretty simple. And I think the mechanic is so unique. I would really like it to stay as it is, personally, because I think it's had enough of a change. And I love that the pink horrors explode into blues and brims, but it's probably been enough of a problem over the past few years. We're going to see some significant changes to it, which is a shame. Right, which is a shame. And also, don't forget, this is also one of the shooting units. They fire magical fireballs. They're not a fighting unit. They're a shooting unit. And so are blue horrors, right? And brimstone horrors. They're shooting units. They're weird, short range.
And rubbish shooting units, and that should be the way it is.
Yeah, that should be the way it is, right?
Because this lad's some of them lads have just popped out another lad. They don't know what they're looking at. They're just throwing fireballs.
Yeah, so and like Kench points out, in 40k they now only split on a 4+. So you might end up making them cheaper, but then that's going to be really not problematic. But let's say you make them 180 points for 10 now because they split on a 4+, right? Well, I'm 360 points is still going to split into a shit ton of wounds.
Do you know how you make that better?
Tell me.
They just split to 1 blue.
Well, no, because I like the whole pop and 2. In my opinion. Jay Sesh, thanks for resubscribing. Maybe that's a personal thing and everyone in the community wants to get rid of it. Let me know.
I like it, but I think if you're trying to balance it quickly, they split into on a 4+, they split into 1.
Yeah. So pink horrors are no longer mages. So they're not wizards anymore. They got that taken away from them.
Poor lads.
Yeah. And they are fairly overloaded, like you said, but they are the iconic unit for Tzeentch. That's what you Pink horrors are Tzeentch, and Tzeentch are pink horrors. It's like saying that there's too many bloodthirsters in this Khorne army.
15 bloodthirsters in this Khorne army.
But either way, I think pink horrors is always going to be a conversation point for what they are and who they are. Then you've got a couple of interesting units. You've got flamers, and you've got screamers, and you've got exalted flamers, and they're kind of in a weird spot because exalted flamers used to be able to take as a unit. Yep. Flamers are incredibly expensive, James. I ran 1,000 points of flamers this weekend, which, by the way, is 17 flamers. No, 15 flamers. 15.
Okay, so not many flamers.
Not many, and it's also only. Let me get this right. 30 wounds on a 5+ armor save.
Okay.
For 1,000 points. So, but they were really good. Not worth the points for 180, but definitely when they came out 120, they were way too good. But they're also a short range unit. I kind of think flamers are almost one of the perfectly written war scrolls in Age of Sigmar.
Okay.
Because they're 18-inch range. They have a 5+ armor save. You buy 3, right? 3 is 6 wounds on a 5+ armor save. No ward save.
Nice.
Right? That's it. And they do 10 shots that do D3 damage, and if you're shooting at 10 or more models, you get +1 to hit. Right? And they have no rend. They have no rend, unless you take them in a sub-faction with rend. So they're kind of perfectly balanced, because 18 inches is straight away in fighty range. If you're they got the turn, those flamers are getting charged. And anything can kill 6 wounds on a 5+ armor save. Anything. Pretty much.
Even a clan rat.
even a clan rat, right? Like, they're crazy. Like, they're crazy. So, like, I would probably just like them to stay the same because I think their War Scroll's perfect and then make them 160, 150 points, I reckon.
Yep.
But again, it depends what you give them, right? If you compare them to bow snakes, James, bow snakes, it's crazy. Bow snakes are 24-inch range. They're 10 less points. They're shit tons more wounds. Like, they're 10 wounds. Like,
There's 10 of them.
yeah, there's 10 of them. They have a teleport. Like, there's a bunch of different stuff. Like, well, there's 10 wounds. There's 5 of them, basically.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But they're 10 shots, right, that do mortals at range. So, they're in a tough spot. And then we got to the Zangor. And this is kind of where I get a bit weird about the book. Because the Shaman, the Zangor on foot, the Enlightened, and the Skyfires, I get are a key part of the Tzeentch book. But I don't really know what I would want them to necessarily do in the Tzeentch book. Like, I think the Zangor unit should just be your big fighting unit. You should have the tar pit that is the pink horrors, and your Zangor block should be a fighting unit. But that means you've got to be able to buff them, because you can't buff them. You can't give them any special rules from the Lords of Change or anything. So, I'd like to see them, like, work as an army. Or kind of do a Uruk War Clans, although it'd be pretty limited.
No, I think there's not enough units. They almost need a thing that's just like, this is their War Scroll in Tzeentch.
Yeah, but then they need to, like...
If a Lord of Change is here, this is what they're doing.
And they need to be they need to actually part of the book. Because right now they're weird. They're like aliens in the book. They don't really like integrate with it at all. Like, yeah, sure, they're flying around on discs, which are demons, but they're not really doing anything with it, right?
I like the fact someone in the chat called Zangor Jack said they need to be good. I don't feel like he's biased about Zangor.
Well, they do need to be good. They do need to be good because they're rubbish. They're only good in Beast of Chaos because you can rally them on a 4+. Like, that's the only reason that they're good. So they need...
And Tzeentch, who's just making things out of nothing, cannot rally on a 4+.
Right, yeah. Like, the army that's just making up the rules. Maybe a sub-faction for them. I like... Because our Zangor Enlightened are our heavy cavalry, for lack of a better word. So maybe make them anti-infantry or an anti-monster. And then, James, there's one thing I need to talk about for Tzeentch before we move on. The goddamn Mutaleth Vortex Beast.
Good lad, but not good in the game.
Make that guy crazy. I want him to be like 250 points, yeah? And I want him to just, like, it's just a random table. That's what's great.
For everything.
Because the other way to take this book, James, is just to make this book be like Skaven. And just give it a lot of random, but like you intended the random, right? Like you intended. Have it just like do crazy shit, like 1 to 6. Like, do crazy, crazy shit. That's what I want to see. Like, I want to see, like, nut stuff. I'm not saying Purple Sun level of nuts, but maybe on a 1 to 6, like, on a 1, you kill any wound, you kill a character below 5 or whatever wounds. Like, 5 wounds or less. But on a 6, -1 save. Like, you're fishing for, like, hilarious stuff. Do you know what I mean?
And they're great models.
They're great models. They're great models. Spawn on a random table at the tournament, make it wild. Like, how can the Engine of the Gods exist with what it does? And the Mutaleth Vortex Beast is just stood there like, am I a joke to you? Because it's an incredible
just
model,
having a
right?
walk around.
It's an incredible model.
Yeah.
Like,
in fact, I don't think it's even on this web store.
Yeah.
There you go. That answers that.
Yeah. My friend played it, and every time he used its ability, says Stormy Blessed, he rolled a 3, which is -1 to move. In fact, actually, can we take a moment to just look at what it currently does? Because it's actually really, really sad. Mutalith Vortex Beast. Okay? Let's take a moment to look at it. So basically, you've got a special attack called the Aura of Mutation. In your hero phase, pick one enemy within 18 inches. And it's in your hero phase, so you can't move and shoot. So it's not that good. Number 1, subtract one bravery from the characteristic. Terrible. Number 2, Trog Brains. Subtract 1 from the run rolls made for the rest of the battle. Oh no. Number 3, subtract 1 from the move characteristic. Number 4, the unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. Number 5, the unit suffers D6 mortal wounds. 6, the unit suffers D6 mortal wounds, and you create a spawn.
Nice.
right? But he's 175 points.
And does it do anything else?
I mean, it's kind of a fighty monster. Not really.
Okay.
Not really.
12 wounds?
He has got 12 wounds with a 4-up armor save, so he's terrible.
And its damage table, how fast does it affect it?
As soon as it's taken 2 wounds.
Yeah, because it's old, and the old model versus the old monster versus new monster damage tables, not good.
Not good, no. So, I mean, I think that's the biggest opportunity for a glow up, because Mutant the Vortex piece could do some amazing stuff, right?
Also, who remembered that the Mutilix Vortex Beast box was shared with the Slaughter Brute?
Again, don't get me started on Khorne, because Khorne is the most imbalanced book in the world, and that Slaughter Brute, which looks ugly, let's be honest, deserves some time in the sun, right?
We're burning those models though. That's how we keep him warm in winter.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, like why doesn't it just automatically generate a Chaos Spawn every turn? Like if you happen to get near it, like on a 2+, kill one model in an enemy unit in a Chaos Spawn.
Also, then Games Workshop would be having a great time because those spawn are expensive.
Yes, they are.
25 quid for 2.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Jog's right. Every single roll has an effect and creates a spawn. There's such fun stuff you can do with this army. Yeah, like, so that's Tzeentch. Chat, I think we've covered Tzeentch pretty well. And then we're just gonna do Gargants in a moment. You got anything left unsaid about Tzeentch, James? Do you think? And also, I don't hate them getting rid of Destiny Dice, by the way. Like I think that they should get rid of Destiny Dice, make them re-rolls, make them something else. I don't care.
I just like my spawn idea. I've decided I'm sat on that now. I want every spell to do damage and everything to make something new.
I think I like the idea of them being more of like if there was going to be a control deck army, if there's going to be like a blue magic control how the enemy plays army, it should be Tzeentch, and it isn't Tzeentch, and that's weird. It really is. Could have greater and lesser spawn if you want, person size and current size. That's hilarious. I love that idea. That's great. Unfortunately, they're probably going to play it Tzeentch with Z. What does everyone think in the chat? What do you think is going to happen with Tzeentch? I think it's the book that's got the most opportunity, and it's going to be the worst. But we'll see. Right, okay, so the other 2 books that are on our kind of like timeline is Ogres and Sons of Behemoth. Now, I'm not going to force James to go through Ogres again, but if you go back and watch the YouTube video where I talk about the dads and lads, which you can go back and watch, I do this entire show that me and James have just done, but we just do it with the Twitch chat, and it's just me, and we do just Ogres, right? Which basically we say, very much like what we said for Lumineth, is those units need some identity, right? Ogre Gluttons, Lead Belchers, Man-Eaters, although they're not on the store anymore, and Yetis.
Or Man-Eaters.
Like your poor Man-Eaters. Yetis and Iron Guts all need to be very different infantry units that do different things. I think that's fair, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ogres need some, like, difference, right?
Yeah, I agree. Right. And then, okay, so that's Ogres. They need something different. That's all we're going to say. And I want to see Gluttons be good. I don't. If it's just Battletome, Frostlord on Stonehorn, I'm kicking off.
Can we burn those too?
Well, the Frostlord and Stonehorn. I'm happy if the Frostlord and Stonehorn is never good again for the rest of time. It's been good for 5 years. Just get it in the bin, and also.
It's another weird book where like they splatted 2 together but never really merged. Why the Frost lads and the normal lads are hanging out.
Yeah, they never merged them, and then they were like, by the way, also, we hate the Gluttons part. Fuck that. Just buy a Frostlord and Stonehorn.
Don't buy the fun ones where there's a ninja with a rolling pin.
None of that. Just
none of that. Just this
guy.
lad on a kind of woolly mammoth.
Yeah. And then finally, we'll talk about Gargants, James. So, new book. We've already seen that Dad Brod is being released. So the new special character. James, give me your 10 cents. What do you think?
Dad Brod,
and also the new Gargant book being released.
The Dad Brod
model, which is the new miniature.
It's just the worst.
Why?
Like, and I know people are gonna like it, and I'm really sorry because I really wanted to like this, right?
Oh yeah.
Because I quite like the Mega Gargant thing. I know it changed the meta. I know people hated playing it, but there was part of me was like, it was kind of cool. Like it was kind of cool for it to change and things to change. And the meta to change, and like I like the idea that people were like, I just want 4 big models. But what I don't get is like, I was like, oh, I just want 4 big models. Oh, I've bought my 4 big models. Do they look different? No. 2 have got a gimp mask, and 2 have got shoes on. But do they look different? No, because I don't want to mod my models. I don't want to spend 3 hours modding them. So I've just got 2 lads in slippers and 2 lads in gimp masks. Oh, are they all stood the same? Yeah, they're all stood the same. Oh, that's weird.
That is weird. But they photoed them in different positions, so they don't look like they stood the same.
But we're going to give you a new, exciting, big lad model. King of kings. Biggest lad of biggest lads. Oh, sweet. What's he look like? Oh, he's the same model with a new hat.
He has got a big hammer as well.
I don't care. The hammer's rubbish. He's just a guy with a new hat. And I know people are going to like him. I'm sure there's people out there. And I'm sure people with Mega Gargants are super excited. But it's just a new hat. His face is ugly. That's fine. He's a Mega Gargant. But I honestly am just like, he could just be another lad. He doesn't look like a king. He doesn't like he kicked the arse of the other ones. He's just another lad. And if that upgrade sprue is an extra cost, also 10 out of 10 garbage.
10 out of 10 garbage, I agree. I'm in a weird spot. I didn't like the Gargant book when it got released anyway. Mainly because like it played in a way that I felt was completely like antithetical to how I thought Gargant should be, right? They should just be big lumbering idiots, and if they hit you, you die. And instead they became like I stand on an objective weirdos, and that was it. So like I wasn't really a fan. And then the sub-factions really didn't do anything to like change or re-identify how they worked. I would have really liked to have seen the launch of some new man crushers, and had some more littles in a bunch of different ways.
So, do you want my controversial take?
Yeah, go on.
I think the Man Crusher kit's better than the Mega Gargant kit.
I also think the Man Crusher kit is better than the Mega Gargant kit. I agree with that 100%.
Like someone the other day was like, "Oh, I can't believe they didn't give us new little ones." I'm like, "No, give me some new legs. I'm sick of seeing the same 4 guys."
I mean, I would have liked some new Man Crushers, because then I think like you could have forced, like, and someone said in the chat, you could have forced it so you could only have one big Man Crusher. But then, you can only have one Gatebreaker, but they're not going to do that now because people have already bought like 1 million of these things and they want to run 4 of them around and just be big, right? Which is fine. Like, live your life, like, go and enjoy yourself. I personally just don't really want this book to be in the game. That's just my general take on it. Like, I don't mind there being 1. I wouldn't mind if the book gets released and the entire army is now only allyable or a mercenary that you take into armies, as opposed to its own army, and that's just where I'm at with it. Like, I wish it was somewhere else, but I just I don't give a fuck when someone puts a Mega Gargant army in front of me. I'm like, cool, whatever. Like, I'm just not interested in any way, shape, or form. So like that's kind of where I'm at with it. And so I don't really have any advice, or like not even advice or any thoughts on what I'd like the army to play like. So what I'd like them to play like is getting into the bin and going home. Like, it's what I'd like them to do. And then we'll talk about Slaves to Darkness another day, right? That's what we'll do. We'll talk about Slaves to Darkness another day. Eddie Makes in the chat says, I love the idea of a giant list. It's so cool. Just the way they play on the battlefield sucks. I thought they'd be more like a fun green Magic style deck. Yeah, I thought they'd be more like a red aggro, punchy, just do loads of damage, then fall over and die. And if they land on you, they explode. And just kind of like the attrition the other way.
They probably don't fall over though, because they're really good at walking on their legs, because they've all got the same legs.
Well, this is the bit that gets me. Like, you built an army, and you're like, yeah, we want this army to like be a good objective controlling army. You're like, that's so weird, because it really doesn't feel how ogres like Gargants would play. Like, they would just be like, I'm furious, you're near me, and then they'd hit you, and that would be it. Like, that's all they do. And so, like, yeah, I'm very confused.
Maybe
anyway.
Gargants needed to play their own meta game where, like, you have, like, a hoard of treasure and you have to, like, randomly place it and then defend the hoard of treasure, and you don't play the objective game, you play your own game.
Yeah, or they're just like they just get furious that or they like that one of the they're like that unit looks tasty, and then you just got tasty bonus points against it, right? And that's the other. Do you know what the other crime was, James? They didn't make anything fun. They didn't let me like, oh, that's the tasty unit, and then, oh, I've got a monstrous reaction where I salt and pepper them, and I get +1 to hit because I'm so excited about salt and pepper. Like, they didn't make it like jazzy and exciting. Like, I get it's Age of Sigmar and it's serious, but they're dumb big lads. Make it.
Also, the bit that's annoying is it's Age of Sigmar and it's serious, but then Skaven blow up and Git bounce on little squigs.
Yes.
Like, pick a corner.
Yeah, like
It's a laugh or it's not.
Yeah, like pick a lane. Like what are like, and I really feel like Sons of Behemoth could be a fun army, right? Like just fun. Like
Yeah,
that's
it's
what it should be.
destruction too. Like most of them are ready to have a laugh. I mean, them dumb old Iron Jaws are having a hard time punching people, but everyone else is having a nice time in destruction.
Yeah, right. Like that's all they do. Anyway, really exciting time for Age of Sigmar. We'll maybe talk about safe startness next week, although we might have.
Do you know what we should talk about really quickly?
Tell me.
That new ogre model.
The new ogre model.
Yeah.
Do you like it?
No.
What? You can't end the show on a down. Makes people sad. Why don't you like it?
I want to know where he's got those heads.
What?
So the heads that are on his belt, what are they?
The heads that are on his belt. Oh, they have not keyworded this website well at all. I'm like, where the fuck are ogres?
Do you want the link?
Yeah, send me the link. Send me the link, and then we can talk about it.
Let's just talk about him quick, because I've looked at him again now, and I'm angry.
Okay, hold on.
Well, I'm not angry. Angry is probably the wrong thing. And I'd like the chat to tell me why he's good.
This guy. I think he's amazing. Why don't you like him?
Really?
Yeah. What don't you like about him?
I don't really like the fact he can't see.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like he needs his mom to push his hat up.
Okay.
But mostly, right, that annoys me the most
Yeah.
is what are the heads on his belt?
Okay, he's got a cold one head from Cities of
But it's
Sigmar.
not a cold one head, is it? Have we all seen a cold one? Because they don't look like that.
So, no, the Dark Elf ones do.
Yeah, but they're dead.
No, they're in the game still. They're called.
But they're not that big.
They're called Drakespawn Knights.
Okay, but they're not that big.
No, they're not that big. Maybe that was a big one. Maybe that was a mummy one.
Okay. And where's the polar bear come from? Has he gone back to the fucking old world?
Yeah, the polar bear's a weird shout. I'm not
Like-
sure. Like maybe that's Kislev. Maybe Kislev's coming to Age of
Yeah.
Sigmar. Thought
It's
about
coming
that.
back.
Yeah.
I just think, you know, like earlier we talked about like someone makes a model because they want to make a model, and then someone's like, and I feel like someone made a model that's cool. Like parts of this are cool. I'm not sure about his face, but like the heads are great. Like I like the fact that dinosaur head is his quiver. That bear's awesome. Where's it come from?
That's a good point. Where does it come from? And also, I guess the other bit is if you look at the Ogre Tyrant that they released. In fact, actually, I might still have it available for us to look at. If you look at, so they released this Ogre Tyrant a while ago, right? So this like, and he's like classic Moor tribes. He's got the belly plate. Yeah, he's got like the different armor. He's collecting the Stormcast heads. He's got a couple of weapons. He was our classic ogre guy, and then they were just like, "What about not?" Like
but
any
also,
of those things.
like if we go back to the other lad,
Yeah,
like he's got a Stormcast head,
he does.
and he's got what other heads has he got? He's got a Stormcast head. He's got
Maybe a
a
skater
head, and maybe a Beastman head.
Maybe. Yeah.
So like I know where those heads came from. Where's this other guy getting his heads from?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, the polar bear one, I don't know, but the Drakespawn Knight, I can at least kind of like say.
You're just clutching.
I think I am clutching. I don't know.
But that was my point. I just wanted to talk about him because I was confused, and I wanted the chat to tell me why he's so good, but I don't think anyone has yet.
I don't know if he like. I think a lot of people are excited about him as a miniature, but how he gets into it, I can't get over all the Suns models have the same legs pose. Says Stavros.
Also, which is still throwing me.
Yeah.
Is why did they give us another hunter when that was the last ogre model we had?
And the ogre model, no, not that. So we've got We have
We had
actually
the
we've got a
Underworld
no,
lad.
so we had an underworld pirate, yeah,
Yeah.
with
Oh yeah, I forgot him.
yeah, the under. Of course, you forgot him. Do you want to know
With
if
the
you got?
parrot and
Do you want
stuff.
to know if you go on the ogre store? Sorry, on the ogre store here, like we have, yeah, and you click see
Yeah.
all. Do you think you're going to see the underworld's pirate in here?
No.
Correct. You don't. You don't see it in there. Like it's just not on the
Do
store.
they even sell him anymore?
They do sell him. Yeah,
Huh?
yeah. Black powder, I think his name is.
Let's find out.
So and then we also got. So this is
Yeah,
our
he
second
is.
hunter because we got another hunter called Rothroth. Rothroth.
Yeah, that lad.
That guy. Yeah. And there's
Oh, you
also
get a monkey with a pirate. I
yeah,
remember.
you can. Yeah, he's great. Yeah, monkey. There's also a Curse City ogre as well. Yeah, thank you, Grinaldi. So yeah, we haven't had like.
Oh yeah, there was him.
So Age of Sigmar's been out for 6 years, and we've got ourselves 1 pirate, 2 hunters, and a tyrant. So
Technically, in the 6 years Age of Sigmar's been out, haven't ogres lost more models than they've gained?
yes, that is correct.
Cool.
But that's most armies too. That's most armies. Anyway,
I
James.
guess so.
Anyway, just to way to bum out the end of the show.
No, I'm not going to bub it out. Let's finish with some good news. What are you doing for the rest of your week?
Oh, I'm rebranding the Honest Wargamer.
Oh,
Nice.
is it going to be my face?
We're launching some Slap Chop merch.
Nice.
Nice. Yeah. And I'm working on a new project for October. And I'm doing a tabletop in 10 minutes.
Nice.
Pretty busy week. And I'm live streaming every day, 11 a.m. till 1 p.m.
Nice.
Yeah, every
Stay
day.
busy. That's positive.
Yeah. It's not like a rebrand. Like, it's just like the new graphics. Because basically, we spent ages. We are also doing, well, okay, I can announce it on the chat, but I don't want anyone to get too excited because we're still talking to some, hashtag a tabletop in 10 minutes or tit. Hashtag tit. Thank you in the chat. So James, obviously, if you're going to dry brush, so most people don't know, but the Snapshot video is now at 200,000 views, which is fun.
Nice.
So I thought we might do some custom dry brushes to go with it.
Why?
How do you like the name Slap Chopsticks?
Yeah, it's a winner.
What are you doing for the rest of the week, other than being a barbarian?
Why am I a barbarian? The beard. It's the beard.
No,
It's a
you're
big
playing
beard.
you're playing that game, the war game.
Oh yeah, I'm actually a knight. I'm a longsword.
Oh,
Shield, sword.
oh, okay. Apologies. A
Yeah.
knight.
Get it right.
Okay.
What am I doing this week? I have loads of things on this week, I think.
Hold on.
But my
The I,
biggest
want,
one-
I want the chat to not know this is not revenge for the objective markers, probably. Slap Chopsticks.
Yeah, on Friday I'm playing Blood Bowl.
Oh wow! Blood Bowl. That's exciting.
Learned the other day. Gonna
Oh, and
try
you're
learn
playing with
better.
Bretonians, aren't you?
Well, they're not turning up in time apparently, but I do have some undead lads.
Oh, that's fun. That's fun. Have you played before?
I have played the computer game several times,
Okay. All right.
and then me and Meg had a first game the other day. So on Friday, Miles is coming, and he's gonna teach us to play some more.
Oh, that sounds really exciting.
Because me and Meg played the other day, and we just had this great game where she probably shouldn't have done okay because she's playing snotlings, and I'm playing some like undead lads that are apparently okay, and she kept being like, "Oh, I'll hit you uphill," where she rolls 2 dice and I pick it.
Okay.
That's how that works. And then she'd roll 2 dice, and I'd be like, "Oh, those are still both negative for me." So I'd be like, "Do I want this snotling to punch my werewolf in the face and knock him out, or punch my werewolf in the face and knock him out?"
Yeah. Okay. That's fun. I like that. I like
So
that.
there
I
we
like
go.
that. I've still not yet done the Blood Bowl game, but soon. Soon.tm.
It seemed fun. I think it seemed fun.
I think Blood Bowl's one
and-
of those ones that I would only play with painted minis, basically. Like, but anyway. James, thanks very much for joining me for the show today. If you listen to us as a podcast, stay
Pleasure.
hydrated. If you are watching back on YouTube, please like, subscribe, and all those other things. And the Twitch chat, my friends. Thank you for being in the chat. Thank you to everyone on the Honest Wargamer Patreon who supports the show so we could do it. My love to you all. Look after yourselves. Keep being an honest wargamer or some other lame catchphrase to end the show. Hashtag slapchopsticks. Hashtag tit.